What is it that you desire more than anything? What is it that you really want? What is the formula for overflowing abundance? As the sun rises over New York City, the cityscape is bathed in a golden glow. The Gilded Age was a time of unprecedented wealth and opulence, as the elite built towering skyscrapers and ornate mansions that were the envy of the world. Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest men of his generation, would one day meet a young man named Napoleon Hill, who went on to become one of the most influential thinkers of the era and author of Think and Grow Rich, Changing the World Forever.
Here's Reverend Ike. Reverend Ike, what is your message?
I have retranslated that portion of the Bible that says the love of money is the root of all evil to read the lack of money is the root of all evil.
I'll ask you each this question, beginning with you, Reverend Ike. How is it that man can have the healing power?
I teach each person that the presence of God, the presence of good, whatever you call God, is within you.
The divine mind is operating in my mind. And as my mind, I am in tune with the infinite. The God presence in me. I see fantastic ideas constantly unfolding in my mind, leading me into ways of success and prosperity. I see myself prosperous.
The Prosperity Summit will be the catalyst for the achievement and earned riches you've been waiting for. Learn from the masters and expect abundance.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Prosperity Summit. I am so grateful. I am so happy to be back with you today. And I want to introduce, of course, our co-hosts of the event, our amazing, beautiful Crystal Hansen and Mark Victor Hansen, who is also beautiful, by the way.
I feel the same about you. Thank you, Cliona.
You are beautiful. We're so happy to be here today. And as I watched that trailer, Cliona, I just felt so much joy in my heart for the people who are attending this, because what our goal is to just bring out the most good we can in you. We want you guys to become aware of the ever-flowing, never-ending good that flows from you, and the good that you can create, and the good that you can do in this world. And so I just wanted to thank everybody for coming to this, for investing their time, their precious hours into this, because I know when they sow their hours into learning these principles, they will reap so many beautiful things in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's all about sowing and reaping. Absolutely. And what I want to say to all of you, and Mark's going to he's going to introduce our next guest and a few other guests that we have today that I cannot wait until you hear from each one of our guests. But what I want all of you to really think about is when I've attended so many events, so many seminars, but I want you to study the principles our speakers are sharing with you. How did they do it? How did they do it? Take note, and then you're going to apply what you're learning. Study it. This is what I've done for years. And Mark, I'll pass it to you. I know you are an incredible leader. You're a great inspiration to me and many people here today.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to join you in welcoming you to day 2. And thank you for yesterday. We had the overflowing abundance of attendance, and the notes in the chat, if you got to read them, were just mind expanding, because it hit you at a deep, profound level. And if you missed anything, as long as you're registered, you can go back and watch it and replay. And we want you to get, like we said yesterday, at least 3 other people to watch it. But let's talk about the most important principles of today as we go into Xavier Eikerenkoetter, who is not only a brilliant mind scientist, but a superb musician. I can't pronounce the word. He's not a magician. He's a musician.
He plays
and
music.
A great drummer, a giant percussionist with 12-foot drums. And then we've got on Limiting Sharon Lechter, and you're going to love her stories starting with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and on to exiting your business rich and all kinds of good stuff. She's got a special book for women now. And Crystal's even in her book, Think and Grow Rich for Women. So that's amazing. And then Brian Hess is started with a little pavement group and now turned it into 50 million a year earnings after only 4 years. So you got to listen to these people at the depth of your soul. But here's the most important point. Crystal said it correctly, and Cliona said it. You've got the number one investment in the whole world is ours. You invest in you. 1974 or 3, I'm bankrupt. I'm upside down. I'm suicidal. I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag, not feeling good about myself because I thought my self-worth and net worth were the same. And I went to Reverend Ike, and then with the little money I had in my empty pocket and no checkbook with no money in it, I bought everything he had, and I started listening again and again. And remember, I'm driving around a beat-up Volkswagen with, back then, the tape recorders were this big, and I'd be holding it, driving a stick shift, and it was really amazing. But what you do is your input determines your throughput and your output. If you sow yourself into these seminars and understand this is a continuity learning, you don't get it once and own it forever. Even I, and even Crystal and I'll do it that way. This morning, we're listening to Reverend Ike, where he says, you got to let your spirit shine through. And obviously, we got a book here we would love you to get, and we'll talk about that later. But the best investment you ever make, the transformation investment of my life, was going to Reverend Ike 7 years in a row, listening to all his audios, and just going and growing and going, because you got to learn, then earn, and then you'll have a return of investment and a return to give. Back to you, Cliona.
What a blessing that you got to be there in person. My God. Such a blessing. And so, I also want everyone to know now, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. I want you all to know that we have an incredible team. I want to thank our team publicly for doing an incredible job with us. And the music today and tomorrow you'll hear throughout the entire summit is actually Xavier's music, Reverend Ike's son, who you're going to meet now. And so just pay attention to the music. It's so special. I say he's an angel on earth. When I met Xavier with you recently, truly an angel on earth. I feel so blessed. And everything in my life has changed. I call it a God job. And it really is. This is a God job. How this all manifested is, it's through God. I know it. I know everything that's happening here. And for any of you that are even uncomfortable with that term, use whatever, there's a higher power. Use whatever suits you, but just be a little bit open-minded. Be a little bit open-minded this week with us, because my whole life has changed. You'll hear my story tomorrow. And Mark, you're just incredible, and Crystal. So why don't we get started? I'll pass it over to you to introduce our next interview.
You're going to love listening to Xavier and I get interviewed by none other than the wonderful Cliona O'Hara. Crystal's got one more thing to say.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Get ready.
Welcome, everybody. And I am so excited to have Xavier Eikerenkoetter, who is, of course, Reverend Ike's son, and my husband, Mark Victor Hansen, who are the two co-authors of this amazing new biography called Reverend Ike, An Extraordinary Life of Influence. It was such an honor for me to be the main content editor for this life story of Reverend Ike and his work. And I want to say to our audience, if you haven't had the opportunity to investigate or experience the work of Reverend Ike, you are in for such a treat. The story of his life not only reads like sort of a harrowing novel of highs and lows, victories and tribulations, but it is so full of the remarkable teachings of this amazing man. And honestly, just being able to be a part of this project has shaped my life so positively. So Mark and Xavier and I are just incredibly thrilled that Cliona O'Hara and the Napoleon Hill Institute have such admiration and respect for Reverend Ike and his work that they wanted Reverend Ike's biography to be the featured book in this event. So we're going to start with this incredible interview. I know you guys are going to love every minute, so I don't miss a second of it. But I first want to start with you, Mark. You are the reason we're here today to share the work of Reverend Ike. Because as a young man, you were ready to change the world. Everything was going your way. And you hit a personal tragedy and lost everything you'd worked for. And subsequent to that, you met Reverend Ike, which I believe was divine providence and was one of the major catalysts that changed everything for you. So can you just start out by telling us that story of how you met Reverend Ike?
Well, I was sort of a young hotshot and had studied with the smartest guy on the planet as far as I was concerned, Buckminster Fuller. And I tried to be Dr. Fuller rather than myself. And I was building geodesic domes in New York, and I built the Wall Street Record Club, Botanical Gardens, aviaries. Problem is, I was building out of PVC plastic at exactly the wrong time. The oil embargo hit, crashed and burned, and I suddenly had a $2 million business that went upside down so fast I had to check a book out of the library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself. And then I started working when I was ready to commit suicide, and I was living in front of another guy's room for $100 a month, sleeping in a sleeping bag. So I was not styling and profiling. I was despondent, disconsolate, depressed, sad, anger, fearful, and not thinking I could come. I didn't know money, self-worth, and net worth weren't the same. And I started working at the Dale Carnegie Institute. Two guys said, hey, on Sunday, let's go see Norman Vincent Peale, the guy who wrote us out of the Depression with the Power of Positive Thinking. And then afterwards, we'll go up to Washington Heights and we'll hear a guy named Reverend Ike. Well, I went in to hear Reverend Ike, and he just hit my spiritual spark plug. He just wowed my soul and the soul of 5,000 other people that also came in there, many upside down. And what he did is he changed consciousness and awareness and got them right side up. And that's why we decided to write this book, because there's a lot of people that are hanging on by their fingernails right now. And what Xavier and I decided to do was say, hey, look, let's help everybody change the model and change the momentum of their life to go onward, upward, goodward, and Godward. And that's what Reverend Ike did for me. And it probably would never have had a best-selling book like Chicken Soup for the Soul if I hadn't synchronized in time and space, befriended him, let him mentor me. Then we became peers. Then I taught at his Business of Living Institute. Then ultimately I owned a company that hired him to and booked him around called Look Who's Talking. So I could not be more thankful in my heart and soul that Reverend Ike existed, so I could get a high styling, profiling life. Now I've sold over 500 million books and counting. I will still hit 1 billion, which I promised him I would do. And I'm now promising him with his son that we're going to create the greatest legacy possible with the book called Reverend Ike, A Man of Extraordinary Influence.
Wow. It is such an amazing story. And I agree with you that, you know, one man, one person can change somebody else's life so dramatically, or one teaching, the delivery of a new model can change someone's life so dramatically that they change everything for the future. And the thing that I find so fascinating about Reverend Ike is he grew up in a poor Southern Black community with this very strictly religious mother, and was given the Bible at a very young age, but was taught, you know, the Black folks in his community believed that Black people were here to suffer, and that they should accept their suffering dutifully. And then someday when they reached heaven, they would finally get their reward. But Reverend Ike was this precocious little boy, and the Bible he read wasn't teaching any of those things. The Bible he read talked about a God whose pleasure it was to give him everything, a God who said all things were possible through him, a Savior who said the kingdom of heaven are within you. And those realizations ignited a fire in that little boy that never stopped burning. And Xavier, can you talk about how Reverend Ike was able to help people so dramatically change their image of themselves and their relationship with God? Just explain to the listeners what that meant to your father.
Absolutely. Well, it begins with identifying yourself as a child of God, as a son of God, as a daughter of God, as a creation of God, who was meant to become co-creator with God. Because my father believed, as I do, that God created us from himself, themselves, universal mind, whatever you call source, infinite mind. We're created of that stuff. And when we identify and we claim that essence of divinity that's within us, that's within every human being, that allows us to re-identify ourselves, not just as a human being. Yeah, we're divinity clothed in humanity, but the divinity is the core of who we are. We are souls and spirits wrapped in physicality. So the essence and the core of all of us is the soul. It's the spirit. It's the divine. It's the beautiful God within. So my father at an early age owned that idea. He saw the story of Christ as speaking directly to him and about him, as well as every human being, in saying that we are sons and daughters of God. And anything that the world says in terms of I'm worthless because of my skin color or my socioeconomic background or whatever is pure nonsense. And I can set that aside as I am working to unpack the great gifts, the talents, the abilities, the strengths, and yes, the power that God has planted within me. And so that's what you see in this book. This, besides being, as you said, just a wonderful life story and a fantastically compelling biography, to me, it's a success manual. And I love the title of this summit. It's a prosperity summit. Yeah. And I love that it's about sowing and reaping abundance, because you see over the trajectory of this book how my dad took the seeds that God planted in his soul before he manifested into this earth plane. And you see him take stewardship. He discovered those talents and gifts and the power within. And he developed that gift and those powers. And then he deployed them on behalf of the world that benefited everybody. And that's what we're each meant to do in our own individual way. And he shows that story. You will see that story and you will be inspired by that story. This story will breathe a new breath of life into you to bring forth your gifts, your talents, your God-given abilities to this world to benefit you, your friends, loved ones, and all of humanity.
Wow, it gives me chills. It's just so exciting. And, I want to talk about his gift of imagination and his gift of visualization, because, with the Napoleon Hill work, Think and Grow Rich, imagination, visualization, faith, all of those things are extremely important tenets of that work. And your dad, and Mark, you can speak to this too, but he had this incredible ability as a young boy, this imagination that allowed him to see something very different than what was going on around him. Because what was going on around him everywhere in his community, in his family, the things that were being taught and preached to him were so very different than the things he was able to visualize and to hold on to. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, imagination is a front end of realization. I'll just start it, and then my dear friend Xavier can hitchhike on it and finish it. But what happened is, as a little kid, he saw that no other little kid saw what he saw. In other words, he had no money. He couldn't afford 7 cents for a meal, and he was wondering where all the screaming liberals were at that moment when his belly button was sticking to his spine. But at night, he would sit there and he would close his other eyes. His mother would be out singing, and because she had a great voice, he also had a great voice. And he would visualize, I see myself having fine cars. I see myself having lavish parties. And I'm the host. I see myself inside those cars. I don't see the clothes in the window for somebody else. I see myself wearing the most luxurious, fine, sartorial splendor of clothing that exists. And as a little kid, he took on ownership of that. And when he walked to school and watched great motor cars go by while he and his mom and his grandma were walking to school because dad had left, he would just pick up a stick and start imagining that someday he would have cars. And he took ownership of that, and later on taught you live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, which you learned from Neville, and it will be. And it's what Christ said, pray as though the thing for which you're praying has been received. He knew, like Xavier said, he imploded the principles, owned the principles, taught the principles. And I got to say, he was like, he made everybody get the contagion of that. You want to add to that, Xavier?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, imagination is one of those human gifts that we are born with. It's one of those gifts that God planted within us. And let me back up a bit and go to a question. This is about prosperity and abundance, sowing and reaping prosperity and abundance. And this question to me is really the foundation of prosperity and abundance. Yeah. Because when we understand this, it'll take care of everything else. And the question is this: what has God planted within the ground of your being? What seeds or what stalks that you are now in charge of tending and nurturing so that they can grow into full fruition to bless the world? And if we start to look at prosperity in that context, everything else takes care of itself, because it's a matter of bringing forth what is truly within us, the divine powers and abilities. So imagination is one of those gifts that we all have, each one of us as a human being. It's one of the qualities of being uniquely human, the ability to imagine, right? So as Mark was saying, my dad as a little boy would lie down on his bed, again, dirt poor, and he would project upon the ceiling of his bedroom these scenes of throwing lavish parties in his lavish house for people. And it was vivid and real. And he'd be walking down the country lane, Beaufort, South Carolina, Ridgeland, South Carolina, where he was born. He would pick up a stick and hold it in front of him, and he would be imagining that he was driving a big, fine car. His imagination really, I would say, was an ability that he kept contact with. See, as children, we have this. We have extremely fertile imaginations. We have the, friends or foes living under the bed. We have the fairy friends. We have this, that, and the other imaginary people. But we have an ability to see into other worlds. And part of the other world that we see into is the future. So he was imagining and envisioning his future. And we each can do that. So as he unpacked this power of imagination, he was tending that garden within him. He was nurturing those seeds that God placed within him, that he nurtured, he tended, he watered, he took good care of them, and he exercised and developed that power. And he used it to recreate himself, recreate his life the way that he believed God wanted him to, which included abundance, because again, I'm a child of God. I deserve all of the good that God has. He believed it and he manifested. So further taking the gift, and to me, prosperity is about inhabiting our bounty. Mm-hmm. And when we've tended that seed, my wife and I, we live on a vineyard here in Napa, and we know about tending to vines, and we grow Cabernet grapes. Yes. You tend the vines and they grow beautiful fruit, and that fruit gets harvested and it goes into our neighbor's vintage, and after a certain number of years it's uncorked and it imbues the world with spirit. So I mean, that's just an analogy for what we're meant to do as human beings, to be the husbands, to that term husbandry, or to farm and to bring forth that wonderful fruit that's going to bless the world. And we see how my dad did that with his imagination, that in turn has blessed millions of people around the planet. And we each have the power to do that. That's always what he taught. God in you, God in you, and about bringing that out.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you made a really good point about, how we're all born with this. We come into this world as these beautiful children with beautiful imaginations, unadulterated, and then life happens, the cultural norms, the way our parents parent us, the things that are said at school, and just over time, society can knock that out of us. And I think, in my experience with Reverend Ike and his work, he just had this fierce determination to not only never let that get knocked out of him, but to grow it, to ignite it even more, and then to take it to everyone and share it. Because wouldn't you agree that I don't think Reverend Ike really was just looking for followers to follow him. I think through his work, he was really looking to lead people back to themselves and their own divinity. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So, I know, Mark, you and so many other millions of Americans flocked to Reverend Ike and his teaching, followed his teachings for years. What did you find in the teachings of Reverend Ike that were so unique? I mean, there are other mind science teachers, but how was he so effective? And both of you can answer this. How was he so effective at getting so many people to completely turn their lives around in such a profound way? Because he really did that. I mean, millions and millions of people followed him. And every week, and after you guys answer this, I know I might be getting too far ahead, but I want you to each talk about some of those stories, like individuals who came in a certain way to the church or into his meetings, his Joy of Living meetings, and how those complete transformations happened. So can you speak to that? What was unique about his teachings? And then talk to some of those individuals. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first, I guess.
Okay.
And thank you for that, Crystal. He was amazing because, first of all, he demonstrated you can come from lack, little, and go to lots, loads, abundance, and show it. And he was an example because being born in the 30s, he was born in 1935, and growing up in the 40s, blacks didn't have a lot of opportunity in the South. They didn't, they were put down a lot of times by the whites. There was still segregation going on. Civil rights had not happened. And he transformed himself because he understood with the Apostle Paul, so be transformed by the self-renewing of your mind. And you've got to keep working on that. And you'd walk into United Palace at 175th and Broadway, and the place was just glittering and glamorous like Versailles, because he was deep into King Louis XIV. And you saw all of his affirmations on the wall. I remember the first one I saw is, "You can't lose with the stuff I use." I thought, whatever this brother is using, I don't want to be using, because I was despondent, disconsolate, disenchanted, thought the world had betrayed me. I'm driving around in a pitted window, permanently air conditioned Volkswagen when it was snowing, and it was winter at the time. I had to wipe the snow off my big hand because I couldn't afford to get windshield wiper. The guy, if I had somebody in the right at that time, they put their foot through the rust on the floorboard. But he got me to believe that day that I could go out and start seminars, start charging for seminars. And within 2 weeks' time, I bought a brand new Chrysler Cordoba car with Corinthian leather. And I showed it to him, and he thought that was so cute. But it wasn't just me, because what happened is I saw all the accusations. Reverend Ike's just taking and fleecing the poor people, and he's a shuckster and he's a heister. Just the opposite. Yeah. He taught that Christ said, you've got to give to receive. Giving is the grantor, he'd say, of receiving. Yeah. And I never heard anyone say it so well, preach it so well, do it so well. And he said, look, you've got to give the breath before you can take a breath. He said such simple stuff that was so profound, and it was so illuminating. But it wasn't just illuminating in me. I'll just give one example and give it back to my dear friend Xavier. I'd see people walk in rags, not able to eat, not able to do business. And 2 weeks later, they come in and they'd be renewed in soul, renewed in self-image, like we were talking about. They'd changed the thermometer in their mind. They had new clothes, a new life, a new lifestyle, and they had some money in their pocket. And it happened like that because he says God is the nowness of consciousness, right? Rejoice and be glad in it. And he taught the joy of living, and he sang us happy. And I said I'd do one more thing, and that is when I interviewed, I think it was 28 or 38 people for the book. One was Cleo, who's now 92 years young. And she said, we would sing people into high health and healing before the evening. And it started 6 o'clock and finished like 2 o'clock. And he'd take drunks and get them dry, alcoholics, get them out of alcohol, people with cancer to be healthy. Had people come in sometimes with tuberculosis carried in, and they walked healthfully out after the medical community could do nothing. He had, and the biggest chapter in the book, Xavier will talk about it a little bit maybe, is supernatural healing, because he saw the divinity of spirit. He saw the God ability in each and every individual. And when he looked at your eyes, it was piercing, because he took ownership of his own soul so he could see the illumination potential in your soul. Back to you, Xavier.
Yes, indeed. Here, I second everything you said, Mark. That is so true. And yeah, okay, so to go with this healing piece, and to answer the second part of your question, so how were people changed and who was changed, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the fantastic stories, and another thing I love about this book, is you get people's firsthand stories.
Yes.
With my dad and how they were healed and changed. And one of them is a young man named Gary Richards. He's just a little younger than I. And his foster grandmother brought him to the church back in the late 60s, I think it was. Yeah. And he had a hole in his heart. I believe he was 3 years old. So after praying over the child and having the congregation pray over the child, over a number of weeks, going back to the doctor, the hole in that baby's heart was healed. That's just one instance. There's many instances. You'll get lots of them in the book, but the principle of it, and again, this is part of my father unpacking his gifts as a healer. All right. He's not as widely known as a healer, but he was an incredible faith healer. But he was the first one to tell you that it's not me doing the healing. It is the power of God working through me. As the country preachers and ministers he studied used to say, the power of God is working through me, and much in the manner of Christ. How they took this on is they understood they were acting somewhat as a conductor. If you imagine like a lightning rod or filament within a tube, it charges and that the light comes on. The power of Christ comes through and it charges you vibrationally. And the virtue, therefore, that issues forth is healing and whole making. Healing means to make whole. Yes. And if you touch the hem of the garment, you will be made whole. When you come into the resonance of the Christ, you have no choice but to be lifted in your vibrational frequency, and you will be healed. Yeah. So my dad operated on that principle. Not that he said he was Jesus Christ, no, but he identified with the healing power of Christ because he believed that one and the same God that made Christ, Jesus, who he was, also fashioned him and put a living soul within him. And that soul has the ability to also make whole. And when you vibrate at that level, you have the power and the uplifting resonance to bring other people who come into proximity with you into that consciousness as well.
Wow, so beautiful. And isn't it true that Jesus himself told us that these things I've done greater than these you can do if you believe as I believe? So he was just doing that. Sadly, a lot of people don't believe what Jesus said. They want to believe that only a priest can heal you or somebody else has to heal you, right? But he just made himself available. And I think what really struck me is he always made sure that he was teaching the people he was healing to be available to the God in them. He would call it out. He would make sure and call out the God in everyone around and have everybody participate in those healings, because we all have this power of connection as well, being children, being the offspring of the creator of the universe, right?
Yes.
So absolutely. He taught that wholeness, that oneness. And whether it was for prosperity or for healing or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. All these things we can have if we understand the law, right?
Yes, and you made an important point that he saw the God within the other person. And so you have that identification of a spirit within spirit, soul to soul. And that it calls it forth. You know, Lazarus, come forth, bring forth that which was dead into life. Sickness is, you know, you're on way to death. We want to call forth the life in the spirit within and come into greater wholeness. And to, you know, also address the first part of your question, another thing that was really unique about my dad. Okay, a Black evangelist who taught these metaphysical, esoteric Christian healing principles and did it, you know, writ large, teaching people how to visualize from the pulpit, teaching them how to manifest, and also having the audacity to have this flamboyant style, all of the bling and everything, you name it. He did that as a part of, you know, where I am, shall you be also. He did that to show people of an example. And, you know, a lot of people got caught up in the bling and the money, etc. And if you notice, nowhere in my kind of roundabout definitions of prosperity and abundance have I mentioned money, because money to me is part of, you can say, what issues forth from the core of a prosperous and abundance life. If prosperity is inhabiting your bounty, abundance then is seeing how that plays out in the world that blesses other people from your exalted giving, from what you give and how you bless people, and see that domino effect. And so my father did that so powerfully. He was a living example. And he also showed us that, you know, money and material things are not real. It's all silly putty. It's stuff to play with. If you want to, you can have as much as you want. Why? Because it's not real. It's an illusion. The problem is we make it real. And when we make it too real, that's when it becomes a scarce commodity in our reality. The truth is, money represents energy, represents consciousness. And I remember him saying, the only getting power there is consciousness. And I mean, just think about that. When we buy something, what are we buying with? I mean, on one level, it's all numbers, right? I can rip out a piece of paper from my checkbook. It's got numbers on it, and I write more numbers. I give it to somebody. They put it in their bank account. They get more numbers. Or I take out a plastic credit card. What has got numbers on it? I don't even have to, like, we don't even swipe them anymore. We just wave it in from the sun, and it transmits numbers, and we go home with all these goods, right? It's an illusion.
Right.
If you don't know that now, you know, we got to wake up to that. Don't make it real.
Right. Money is really a flow of energy. It's just energy. We're exchanging energy. Here's my energy exchange for your energy exchange. And it's just a way, it's a medium upon which we've all agreed to exchange our energy. And so, yeah, we shouldn't get caught up in the energy. And one of the things I love that he kind of has fun with this opulence thing. He at one point he says, I know I'm ridiculous. He goes, I know this opulence is ridiculous, but I'm doing it to make a point. Yeah. Because there are so many of you out there who think, oh, there's no way I could have a Royal Rolls Royce. Now that's the impossible thing. You know, all these things that we think in our mind, no, that's impossible. That's outrageous. He laughed about it. He said, I'm intentionally outrageous because you think there are things you can't have. And I'm showing you there's nothing you can't do, essentially, in so many words, right?
Amen.
Did you have something you wanted to say to that, Mark?
I do. What he basically taught is what we're saying here, is that the first principle is a principle of self-development. And do you have a self-development plan in your life? And he said, look, you've got to have goals. They've got to be in writing. They got to be specific. They got to be believable, desirable, attainable to you. And the first time I met him, I'd written a little book that became one of my books called Future Diary, but I then called it Sunshine Diary. And I had all the things I wanted to do. And he spent 2 hours and we went over it in his private office after a church service on a Sunday. And it was beyond magnificent to have this guy validate me that I was going to pull off all this stuff that, remember, I'm bankrupt and I'm just starting to edge up again. And what he is saying is that every one of us has self-improvement. And what we're saying now is that we're going to ask you to invest in yourself by investing in getting a copy of Reverend Ike's book. And if you're well off, we want you to get a lot of copies of the book and make other people best off, because a book is the most screaming, wonderful, uplifting, exalted value that exists. And Crystal, Xavier, and I have put our life into this book because he said, I want to leave a legacy that transcends me. And it just fits just what Xavier was saying about consciousness. Money is the getting power of consciousness. And yes, you got material money at one level that he teaches. Then you've got psychological money, like what happens on Wall Street, where money never sleeps. But what Xavier's really saying is he taught, if you have an awareness of money, if you become the thought that you're going to be the high value creator in universe, and he was a high value creator of really wonderful teachings. And those teachings changed my life, because the first time I went to the church when I was so low, I had to almost crawl in because I was emotionally distraught. But I bought his tapes on the way out, which now we've converted all those messages into the book. And you know, you can also go to YouTube and watch all of his great teachings. Thank God for 60 years, he was smart to audio tape and videotape everything. And we're bringing that out for you. We and he and we all want more for you than you want for yourself. And so does the Napoleon Hill Institute. And so did Dr. Hill. We believe that only poverty belongs in one place, and that's a museum. And what Xavier's saying about prosperity is the vitality of your soul, the outpicturing, the encouragement. We're here to encourage you, to cheer you on. And, you know, I've been doing this now for 50 years as a seminarist, an author, a creator of videos and content. And I can tell you that he was the maestro, and he had the best singers, the best show, the best talent, the best people off Broadway. And he said, look, I get the highest grossing, longest running Broadway show. So that's what you're going to see. That's what you're going to read. But what's going to do is it's going to wake up the little person in you to say, hey, wait a second. I have infinite power. If I'm made in the image of and likeness of God, then I got God stuff, good stuff, and nothing can stop me. And what we're here to do is cheer you on to higher heights than even you've imagined before.
Oh, I love that. And, you know, I have to say, I have been so blessed because I've studied, you know, Reverend Ike's different programs, and I always return back to them. And he just has a very unique way of taking these principles and helping you live them and walk the journey. But it's like he gives you kind of a step-by-step way, because I think for some people, you know, we hear all of these things that we're supposed to believe and understand about the mind and how it works, but he puts it down to like his genius is making it so practical. So you literally feel like, you know, he's telling you, now you take this step, now you take that step, now you do this, now you do that. And I think so often we need that, because life comes and hits us. And even when we know better, you know, that, okay, life it's just, we're creating this as we go, it still can be, you know, traumatic or dramatic at times. So to have those special teachings, and I know you both understand what I'm saying, it's that step-by-step tutelage that he gives you, that I never stop turning to his stuff. I pull it out. I like when I'm having, you know, the worst day or the worst times, because like, oh yeah, how did I forget that? Thank you. You know, and that's what I'm so excited. We're gonna have some special, you know, gift packages for our audience at the end of the summit, and I hope they take advantage of them, because these are things you're going to use for your entire life to just stay on track and keep moving forward in the most powerful way possible. So it's thrilling to be able to share those, and then share this beautiful biography. And I hope that if everyone listening knows someone who needs that help right now, you'll get this book or get a few books, and, you know, look at some of these packages, because these are the things that change everything. Just like it changed everything for my husband, for so many that you saw. Mark, you became friends with so many whose lives were completely turned around. Xavier, you got to witness this whole thing growing up. I mean, what an honor that must have been for you. But I also want to point out one of the other people that really relied, that we all probably know, many of us know on this broadcast, an outstanding leader who also relied on Reverend Ike's teaching, teachings was our dear friend, Bob Proctor. And he talks about his experience of Reverend Ike in the foreword of this book. Do you want to talk about that, Mark?
Well, Bob and I own two companies together, and Bob, wow, he'd been in the Navy up in Canada, comes out of the Navy and goes into working for the fire departments, making $4,000 a month and owes, sorry, $4,000 a year. Let me get it correct. Remember, he was born within a year of when Reverend Ike was born. So they were, age contemporaries, but he owed $6,000 and he never saw a way that could get out. And all of a sudden he's starting to get into the self-improvement business that we're talking about, self-improvement studies. And all of a sudden he hears and watches a show on Reverend Ike at 1 o'clock in the morning and starts setting his clock for 1 o'clock every morning to watch Reverend Ike. And it turned around his understanding. And suddenly then he also read Think and Grow Rich, and he decided to set a goal. And he said, I'll set a goal for 25,000. Well, he made 75,000 the first year. Then he made 125,000. Then he made $1 million in the third year, because like Crystal and Xavier and I have been saying, there's no limit to what God and you can do. Once you wake up, it grows fast. It grows slow at the beginning, but then it's exponential, where it's 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And the evolution is really fast. And Bob and I were closest friends. So I asked Bob, I said, hey, Bob, would you write this? He said, oh, it'd be my pleasure. I mean, Reverend Ike are our age contemporaries. We were born within a year of each other. Both of us went through the Depression. Wow. So we thought, and I had no father and he had no father at home. We had nothing to eat. We were starving most of the time. I never made it through just the first year of high school. So I didn't get as much education as he did. And yet I've become a gazillionaire. Well, then I want to jump from, just so I don't forget to do it. And that is, Reverend Ike would always ask for money, and those people would have $100 or more come up to the platform and give it. And I was glad when I started making money to do that, because that's 10%. And he taught proportional tithing, and I'd not heard it at that time. And ultimately he wrote a whole book on it called Miracle of Tithing, where you got to tithe your thinking, your time, your talent, your treasure, and be thankful in advance that you can do all that. But I'm standing there with this giant former football player named Haywood Hodges. And I put my hand out and I say, I'm Mark Victor Hansen. I'm Haywood Hodges. What do you do? He said, well, as of 3 years ago, I was a janitor, but I heard Reverend Ike, and last year my company did $100 million. I said, and what kind of company is that? He said, we sell life insurance, and I'm in the World Trade Center at floor 102. And I said, well, I train life insurance. Haywood, I would like to train for you. Well, he had me train, and we took him up to higher heights, just because I really got people to sell $1 million policies that would thought the 100,000 was all somebody would buy. If you don't ask to buy $1 million, they won't buy $1 million. If you don't inspire people to get a better car, a nicer Cadillac, a Mercedes, or a Rolls Royce, or a Bentley, they won't do it. And that's what Reverend Ike did. He gave people permission to accept the God in them, accept the good in them, and translate that into absolute phenomenal abundance for myself, for Bob Proctor. So, but he'd do it for anybody that got into his energy orbit. Back to you, Xavier, about the same point.
Indeed. You used an important word a while back, phrase, Mark, and it was high value.
Yes.
And when we know ourselves as high value, we will accept nothing less than the best. I'm a child of the King. And so, therefore, all of the good that God has is mine. I am worthy of it. So when we know that we're high value, we will allow the best, and we will manifest the best, and we will help to create the best for those around us. And my dad gave so much. I mean, when you listen to his sermons, in the way that Crystal was saying, the methodology is there. He takes you through. He's very good with addressing concerns and challenges and difficulties and limitations that we face, in day-to-day life. And he walks you through, and he takes you through scripture to speak to that. He takes you to examples in the life of Christ to speak to that. He takes you through examples of his own life and people that he has seen surmount certain things. And after taking you through this inspired, terrain, this kind of hike through the land of prosperity, he takes you on a visualization, and which is again a methodical process You close your eyes, close the outer eye, open the inner eye of faith. See yourself upon the stage of your imagination. You don't just see yourself, you see yourself as you wish to be, as God sees you. And how powerful is that? If I can see myself the way God sees me, woo-hoo-hoo, that's it. That's it.
Wow. Thank you. Gosh, you guys, I just feel so honored and overjoyed that I get to share this journey with both of you, and the good work that we're doing and just going to do so much more. Thank you for sharing from your hearts today. And yeah, we're open to anybody who has any questions for us. And so we're excited to have conversations and hope that people will be able to get the special gifts and be a part of this Reverend Ike work and legacy that he left for us.
Absolutely, Crystal, and this is a great privilege. And may I just say also that what you're witnessing here is also a step in prosperity and abundance for me and for Mark personally, because I know that, see, destiny is another thing that we have to unpack. Yeah. That is within us, that God has placed within us. And I know that for both Mark and myself, part of our destiny is to communicate ideas such as this. For me, it's metaphysics and spirituality. So the opportunity to do this is giving me the chance to inhabit my bounty. So thank you for helping me to unpack some of my particular gifts. It's a blessing.
Our honor. Cliona, please, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I'm just sitting here. I was here in the back room listening, Xavier, and I'm just really honored that I get to hear part of the story, to hear Mark, your story in depth today. Really touched my heart. And there's moments I sit and I still do pinch myself, and I say, how did I, this little Irish girl, land in America, right? And I'm sitting with the likes of you all. How did this all happen? And coming from Northern Ireland, broke, in poverty, lost. I came to New York, and I connect the dots looking back. And it was, Bob Proctor was my late mentor who introduced me to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and then introduced me to Reverend Ike. And I didn't have the pleasure to meet your father, but I've been studying. And I believe that's why I'm here today, because I've been applying the principles of prosperity that your father has shared. And I'm just so grateful. And I really agree with you, Xavier. We're here to sow the seeds, plant the seeds, and to have people really wake up to who they really are. Because when I was in Ireland, I thought God was in a cloud up above me and was judging me, right?
Yeah.
And now I know the truth, that God is within me and I can access God at any time. I'm just so grateful. And Napoleon Hill Institute, this is all my manifested dream that was in my imagination, right? Just like you shared today, that your father would teach people how to do visualization. Is there anything you think that your father would add, a message today for the people watching? Is there anything? I know you're a conductor and a channel too. So
I can feel him say, turn to the God within. Turn to your soul and your inner spirit. Heed the voice of that soul and that inner spirit, because that is the tone and the vibration of your destined prosperity. Let that be the through line that coalesces and gravitates everything that you need. Focus upon this, and you'll be well taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Wow. This is for all of you. What a gift. What a beautiful, beautiful gift. Mm-hmm. Xavier, thank you so much for honoring us. And also thank you for allowing us to host your father's book, Mark. and your father's book for this event. And so I love to give as well, because I know the law. We must give in order to receive. And I don't give just to get. I give because this is what we're here for. We're here to serve. We're here to serve our gifts and our talents. I believe that we are a soul in a physical body. And so here at the Napoleon Hill Institute, we've decided to create these amazing gift packages for the holidays for all of you, which we'll be sending out more information. We're going to give you so much goodness to share with your family, because just like you said today, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to get this information out there, to change lives. That's why I'm here. I know that's why we're all here. So in these packages that we're going to offer you, I know through repetition of study and listening to your father, especially the audios, Xavier and his family have gifted us never before heard audios from Reverend Ike, and it's going to be included in every package. And I know it's going to change lives. And that's for all of you watching today. So thank you to you and your family. We're really honored.
Pleasure.
If I may add one more thing, we're talking about the Prosperity Summit, and we're talking about sowing and then reaping, but you got to sow before you reap. And the easiest thing to understand is that if you sow one apple seed, you get an apple tree. But an apple tree during one human lifetime of 100 years, let's say, gives 1 million apples. Wow. But anyone can count the seeds in an apple. Bob Schuller used to say, but not everybody can count the apples in a seed. And that's what we're saying here. We are doing seed thoughts of Napoleon Hill and Reverend Ike, and we're going to create not only an apple tree and an apple orchard, but an apple fortune, metaphorically speaking, so everyone has whatever they need everywhere. And with that awareness, with that consciousness, we can make the world work for 100% of humanity. For the first time in history, we can create fundamental abundance, not only for you, the listener, but we're going to ask you to tell 3 other people to watch this or go back and watch it, get the products that we're talking about, and make everybody better off and no one worse off for the first time in human history. This isn't about how big a piece of the pie you get. It's how big you make the pie. And when I was a student ambassador to India, I lived at Mahatma Gandhi's 2 houses, and Gandhi said it so well: there's enough for everyone's need, but not enough for anyone's greed, right? So we all can have fundamental abundance for the first time in human history, thanks to these teachings, and you add that to technology, plus, and make everybody better off. It is really the most exciting time in human history to be alive. And Crystal joins me in thanking both Xavier and you, Cliona, and the whole Napoleon Hill Institute for being willing to share. Yeah. And some of you don't know it, but because of Zoom, I'm going to just do one more plus. Zoom now, for us, we're going out to the whole planet. 10 years ago, you couldn't go to all 8 billion people, and you couldn't go with an iPhone to everybody. But today, 8 billion smartphones exist. Everybody's going to get access to this. That's never happened before. Because what Reverend Ike taught is when you change your mind, you change your future. And we want you to change to a bigger, better, brighter, more exciting, more dynamic, more value-laden, where you're creating value of yourself so you create value for everybody else in the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Here.
Amen.
Yeah. And let's do it together. It's definitely our responsibility. Let's do it together. Absolutely. One thing that I've learned from Bob Proctor, from Napoleon Hill, from Reverend Ike, is that in order to change our life, we must change our subconscious mind. And we know how to do it. We've been helping clients all over the world for years. We have a proven system and formula. We're going to show you how to study the material every day. We've even included in some of these holiday packages, I don't know if you know this, Xavier, but we're actually going to gift everyone what's called a self-discipline and confidence camp, where you can come study every morning with us at 5:30 in the morning, build discipline. We're going to listen to your father, and we're going to create the change. And I promise you, I give you my word, whoever's watching this, you do this with us every day for 60 days, well, it's actually 6 days a week. For 60 days, you'll have a huge transformation. That's my promise. So that's what we're going to do. We're going all out, Mark. You're right. All over the world.
Excellent. Excellent.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Xavier, Crystal, and Mark. And we will see you very soon.
Thank you, Cliona.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
If you want to experience the very best of life, you must believe that you deserve the best. Too many religious people are taught to believe that they don't deserve anything. And some religious people even pray that prayer, "Oh Lord, I know I'm not worthy." I'm going to ask for some confessions on national television. How many of you have ever prayed a prayer like that? "Lord, I know I'm not worthy." Come on, up with those hands. Chicken. All right, I have too. I know better now. I know the truth and I'm free. But listen, anything that you don't feel you're worthy of, you can't have. Anything that you feel you do not deserve, that you're not worthy of, you automatically cut yourself off from that good. Listen, you cross yourself up when you pray and ask the presence of God in you for something, and then you say, "Now, Lord, I know I'm not worthy." You might as well forget it, honey. Believe that you deserve the best. Now, let me give you a bombshell. I want everybody to get quiet. Everybody just walk and sit in the nearest empty seat. Quickly, listen. I want you to hear this. If you ever heard anything, I'm going to tell you something that's only going to take 10 seconds to tell you. But I want you to hear this if you forget everything else I've said. Because what I'm about to tell you will bring you anything good that you desire, and it will bring it to you quickly. It will bring it to you in the nowness of consciousness. Listen. Anything that you can actually think and feel that you are worthy of must come to you. Don't clap yet. Hold on. I want to be redundant about this. Please listen. Hang on to every word. Anything that you can honestly think and feel that you deserve must come to you. If any person in this congregation are listening on the radio or looking in on television, if you can honestly think and feel that you are worthy and deserve $1 million, that $1 million must come to you. In our philosophy, which we call the science of living, we say it this way: whatever you want in your experience, hold it first of all, accept it first of all in your consciousness. If you could get $1 million feeling, $1 million would have to come to you if it looked like it was dropping out of the sky. It wouldn't actually be coming from outside of you. It would be coming from within your own consciousness. And of course, this is one of the great mystic secrets. Nothing really comes to you from outside of you. Everything comes to you from within your own consciousness. Everything comes to you from within your own inner feeling about yourself. Not according to what others think and feel about you, but your experiences come to you. Your cursing or your blessing, your good or your evil, comes to you out of your own inner consciousness. And once again, let me make the startling statement. If any person could honestly feel and think that he is deserving and worthy of $1 million, that $1 million would come to him so fast until it would make his head spin. Now, wait a minute. We've had an example in this service. Mother Packnett, who used to be the blind old lady and who was healed. And she was taught by me and many of our services that we deserve the best. This is what I teach the people, that you deserve the best. You deserve the best because you're God's child. You don't have to beg God for anything. The day of begging, praying is over. This is the day of accepting the goodness of God.
Wow. I think right now,
and we want to have you understand at the depth of which we're all saying, the depth of you, the truth of you, the wonder of you. You are healthy inside in the divine you, the wondrously prosperous, joyous. You can get rid of depression, rid of anxiety, rid of hostility, rid of hatred and hatred, as Reverend Ike would say, and let your life bloom where you're planted. That's what's so exciting.
Well, and also I just wanted to say, you guys, when you commit to these principles, when you commit to yourself, to immerse yourselves in these learnings, in these teachings, you will apply them to everything in your life. You can apply them to your health. You will apply them to your relationships, just like Matt taught us yesterday, Matt Boggs. But it won't matter if you decide to start a garage door business when you know the principles, right? Just like Tommy Mello, it's not just a garage door business anymore. It's a business that he brought to $650 million. Who could ever bring a garage door business to $650 million? You'll be hearing from Brian Hess today, who started a pavement company because of these principles. He took the pavement company. You think pavement's just pavement. So what? He took that company to $50 million, and it's growing so fast he can't keep up. This is what the principles do when you immerse yourself, when you commit yourself to a lifelong agenda, a lifelong commitment to learning these principles, to becoming these principles. Everything changes in every area. And that is what is so exciting. It's exciting for us because it's changed everything for us. And we know it will change everything for you.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. From pain to purpose, from poverty to prosperity. And that you can get over anything. You can get through anything. And there's a common thread here. I hope you're picking this up from my heart. There's a common thread in every one of the speakers so far that I can see, and they keep God in the middle. And they keep talking about this power that's accessible to all of us. They keep talking about the principles. Reverend Ike, my God, they talk about imagination. And I remember when I worked for Bob as well, Mark, when I worked for Bob, he would say, imagination is when you talk to God. Intuition is when God talks to you. And that keeps being reaffirmed for me through our speakers today and yesterday. So intuition is God talking to us. Imagination is us talking to God. Right. And everyone that's created this beautiful life have been applying these principles, and they've been developing their imagination.
Cliona, and I'm getting texts, some people are saying, where do I buy that package? I've gotten like a bunch of texts of people that I know that are, and so they're really interested in looking at the package. So we will be providing that link, but where can they look for that link?
So we're going to put a link now. Give us a few minutes. We're so happy to share it with you already. Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll put a link. Go to prosperitysummit2023.com. Go there. There will be a link off of that website so you can look at the different packages that we're giving to you for the holiday season. This is going to be incredible. And just like you said, Crystal, it's a way of life. This is a plan. I study every day. I know you do, both of you, every morning. Yes.
Every single day, because you have to renew it, because like we said before, life keeps coming at us. Challenges keep coming toward us. And that is just the nature of life. We live in a world of dark and light. And that's the beauty of it, because we get to really test ourselves, how we're evolving as human beings, how we transcend that and stay in the light and stay on our purpose. And that's how we grow. It's a little bit like this. I feel like sometimes this life is a little bit like climbing Mount Everest. And when you know all of the right climbing techniques, you're going to get to the top and you will feel so triumphant, right? But you need to know what you're doing. You need to have the right equipment. You wouldn't try to climb Mount Everest without the right gear and without the right clothing and without the right training and without the right principles, right? Life is Mount Everest. But what a glorious summit when we are trained properly and we reach the top again and again, because we keep reaching the top. So it's so beautiful.
And now we're going to have a lady that's going to help you summit in ways you can't imagine. Now, she has been our great friend. She and her husband, Sharon Lechter, and Mike Lechter, is an IP, an intellectual property attorney, great friends. But she had a real problem, which she's going to tell you what the problem was. She called me when she was standing in her driveway. I want to cry. I won't tell you the problem because you're going to hear it in a second. But she said, you turned my head around. You, Mark Victor Hansen, turned my head around and got it right. And yes, she sold 40 million books. And yes, they own one of the great cattle ranches in Arizona. And yes, she's a great superstar businesswoman who's on the board of lots of things, including the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And she has turned around 2 major books on Napoleon Hill, 3 Feet from Gold and
Outwitting the Devil. Yeah.
Which I am honored to say I wrote the foreword to. You're about to hear the next level of enlightenment. I think we're bringing you the best of the best speakers, thinkers, thought leaders, movers, shakers, world traders, leaders, record breakers, history makers. And that's what we want you to be also as you imbue yourself, impress this so you can express this. And now on to our dear friend, Sharon Lechter. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Prosperity Summit of all Prosperity Summits, where we're sowing and reaping absolute abundance. We, Crystal, my beloved goddess of exquisiteness, and I, along with Cliona O'Hara, are beyond description happy to have the next woman with us. She has been our dear friend since even before we got married with her husband, Michael. She is a CPA, of course, best known in history as the inside creator of the game Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and co-creator of the book with Robert Kiyosaki. She has written 28 books. She is an international speaker. She is a superstar by herself. But the best thing I can say about her is she's our close dear friend, and the two of us are with her a great deal. You want to add anything, my dear?
No, all of the above. We love Sharon, and she is, out in the world influencing people, but especially women, in so many areas. Sharon has written, Sharon, why don't we just bring you in and talk about the books and the work you've done with Napoleon Hill Foundation.
Absolutely. I'm so delighted to be with all of you. And I am so, you guys are dear, dear friends of mine. And I look forward to always supporting you as you've always supported me. And I think everybody watching and listening needs to understand that power of association is alive and well. And you're going to be talking about that through this summit. I talk about the personal success equation. A big part of that is the associations that you have. Who do you hang out with? Who's challenging you? Who's there to support you and open doors for you? So,
well, you've been very kind to let me write the foreword to even books, which I think we haven't mentioned. But not only are we all sort of addicted to the great thinking of Napoleon Hill, but then you took some of his books out of obscurity and invisibility, like Outwitting the Devil, and then 3 Feet from Gold, and had me not only write the foreword, but narrate it. So I am beyond thankful, because most people go, oh, he just did this. No, we do a lot. And instead of competing, we're monstrously cooperative with each other. So I'd love you to allude to some of that, if you don't mind, in those books, like Crystal said. And then you did the book Think and Grow Rich for Women, the original interview, and had Miss Crystal in it.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it is, I got the call from the foundation in March of 2008. We know what was happening to the economy then. Right. And they had just learned that I had left Rich Dad after 10 years and 15 books in that series. And they wanted to invigorate Napoleon Hill's teachings, because most people back then, young people, I say, and my term is like under 50 now for young people, didn't know who Napoleon Hill was, had never heard of Think and Grow Rich. Mm. But when you said, are you familiar with Pay Yourself First? Yes. Well, Napoleon Hill created that. The term mastermind, that came from Napoleon Hill. The term there's nothing to fear but fear itself, Napoleon Hill. And certainly the law of attraction, which of course Rhonda Byrne and The Secret made very popular. He originally wrote about that in 1916. And so his work is alive and well and has influenced millions of people around the world. But at that point in time, it had gotten a little dated and stale. A lot of young people didn't know about him. So I had the incredible honor to first release 3 Feet from Gold that helped talk about getting through those obstacles, turning those obstacles into opportunities during a time when the economy was scaring everybody. And then the month I released that, they called me about this manuscript that had been hidden away for 73 years. And you alluded to that, Outwitting the Devil. What an incredible honor it was for me to be able to take that manuscript and share it and then annotate it as it compared to when it was written in 1938 and when we released it. And so then my third book was Think and Grow Rich for Women, which was an incredible opportunity to talk about those success steps for women. Because I honored the original book, but as you well know, Napoleon Hill released Think and Grow Rich in 1937. There weren't any women in business back then. And so I took all of those steps of success and then had successful women talk about each one through their eyes and through their lives. And so it's incredibly powerful. And then I think I have over 300 women that I highlight in the book. And it was such an incredibly fun project. And then Success in Something Greater. And then since then I've written a few other books. But it's just been a real journey, a real opportunity. I'm very blessed. I've been very grateful for all of the people in my life. And you certainly, Mark, you were there when I made the decision to leave Rich Dad. You propped me up and told me you were there to support me. And then every time since then, you've always been there to help me and to celebrate with me. And I want to do the same thing for you.
My great pleasure.
Well, Sharon, I would love to circle back a little bit and go back to the Rich Dad, Poor Dad days, because I know, when people, the listeners are watching someone like you and they just see the vast amount of success you've had and contribution. I mean, you've been able to contribute so much to people, to women specifically. And, but I like to go back, to the beginnings, because it seems easy. It seems like you just elegantly floated in because you are an elegant woman. But those early days when you were building Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you were behind the scenes, give us some of the insight to that. What was going on? How did that start? Whose brainchild was that? Why was that work important to you back then? Because that's where it all started. I want to know why that meant so much to you. And it really goes back to that burning desire. Where did that burning desire come from? And what was it for you that started that work?
Well, absolutely. And I wasn't really behind the scenes. I just wasn't as much in the light as Robert. Right. He demands a lot of light. But so I grew up in a very lower middle class house. So my burning desire was really started at a very early age. I was embarrassed where I lived. We lived in a tiny house between my mom's beauty shop and my dad's used car lot. My friends' parents were CEOs, military officers. I wanted to be that. And I really was ashamed of where we lived and what my parents did. And, it's hard to admit today, but that's the truth. I said, I'm going to be a sophisticated professional. So I got my only woman in my accounting classes, one of the very first women in public accounting. I wanted to become a success. And so I was on that trajectory, very, very happy until about the ripe old age of 25. And I realized I wasn't in control of my life. And I tend to be kind of a control freak. And I said, this is not the right path for me. I'm working incredibly long hours. And I had the opportunity to go with a client. And that's at the age of 25, I started my entrepreneurial journey. But the time I had in public accounting showed me how companies succeeded. And more importantly, how companies failed. I learned more through those. And then I also realized that at the dinner table growing up, my dad would talk about assets, cash flow, appreciation. Mm-hmm. And as I got older, I realized that was very unique. I was one of the very few people I knew that understood money and understood the value of buying, building, and creating assets. By the way, my favorite word on earth, assets. Assets are sexy. And now I've added, the older you get, the sexier they become. So I started on my journey, and then my husband and I had children, and my oldest son went off to college in 1992 and got into credit card debt. So that was December of 1992. I was pretty mad at him, but I was more mad at myself. And that's when I dedicated the rest of my career. That was the moment that my burning desire took plant. And that's December of 92. And I'm as passionate about it today as I was then. So it wasn't until 1996 that Robert Kiyosaki went to see my husband, Mike, an intellectual property attorney, to talk about this idea he had for a game. And that's when I met Robert at a beta test. I was the only one that got out of the rat race, but the game cash flow was exactly the same methodology that I was teaching. And so I had just built and sold the world's largest the first talking children's book company. So I had all the connections, all the manufacturing. So I just volunteered as a friend to help Robert commercialize the game. And during that process, we're talking 1996, he said he wanted to charge $200 for the game. So that's kind of pricey for a board game, Robert. Maybe you should write a brochure that would be a marketing tool to get people to want to invest money in the game. And that's when he asked me to be his partner. The brochure we wrote to sell the board game cash flow was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Most people don't realize that. The book itself was never intended to take on a life of its own. Now, 35 million copies later, 7 years on the New York Times bestseller list, and we never expected to write more than one book. But we became equal partners. I was CEO of the company and helped grow it over 10 years. So I was the one building the organization, finding the partners. And again, we grew through the power of association. Time Life helped us do infomercials. Warner Books helped us grow the book side of things. And so it was really an incredible journey for 10 years. We did 15 books together and a myriad of other products. And that's really, we ended up in over 110 countries, over 50 languages, and built the world's largest personal finance brand. So I'm very, very proud of it. And it was absolutely, it was a time before the internet. I know it's hard to believe. Before Amazon.
Oh my gosh.
We truly were a success through true viral marketing, mouth to mouth, right? People hearing about it and people sharing it. People always say, oh, I love Rich Dad Poor Dad. I always ask them, where'd you hear about it? My mother, my father, my friend. And so you can't ask for a better audience than that.
Wow. And I love how just by, following that burning desire and pushing it forward, other things blossom. You didn't have the full picture in the beginning. You imagined that you could help people. And in that imagination, as you give it, and have faith that you will make a difference, it just keeps growing. And it took on a life of its own that you probably never could have fully imagined. But I think it's that desire to help and that faith that you have something that can make a difference, something that really can change the world. And I know that is inside of you, Sharon. And it started as when you were a very young girl. I mean, it's just so fun for me to hear that story.
And when I made the decision to leave Rich Dad, it was like, oh my gosh, what's next? I've just built this. I made the choice to walk away from it because it was no longer congruent with my personal mission. We were no longer on the same page. Yeah. Not knowing what was in front of me. And I tell people, and I want everybody watching and listening to this to listen to what I say. Sometimes you have to close a door for other doors of opportunity to open. I did not know what was in front of me, but 6 months later, when I was kind of having my own little pity party, not knowing what was happening, I got a phone call from President Bush, and he asked me to be on the very first President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy.
Amazing.
Now, I wouldn't have had that call had I still been at Rich Dad. So I served both President Bush and Obama, so nobody can get mad at me. But during that time, we passed the Credit Card Act of 2009, which prohibits college campuses from allowing credit card companies to solicit students on campus. And that's how my son got into trouble. So I can't take credit for the bill, but I can take credit for being a very squeaky wheel. And so starting Rich Dad, this little game, never did I imagine that I'd have a global impact as a presidential advisor. And then a few months later, in March of 2008, is when I got the call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. So I went from building the world's largest personal finance to helping reinvigorate the teachings the world's largest personal development brand. And I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 19. I didn't realize the impact it had on me until much later, but I'm just so honored to have helped rebuild and just revitalize his teachings.
Talk about rewriting and because you brought up to date Outwitting the Devil and 3 Feet from Gold. I don't know what the sequence was because we were both moving at lightning bolt speed with our Mach 3 with our hair on fire, and that hasn't changed.
That's true.
But talk to which one came first and why you did it and the impact and what happened, if you would, please.
Well, the very first book was 3 Feet from Gold, and it was actually, I just found we just moved. I found the actual telephone message slip. March 20th, 2008, I got a call from Don Green, and he said, we've got this kid that we let do this book called 3 Feet from Gold, which is based on a story out of the original book, but he needs some help. And so we'd like for you to, meet with him and see if you can guide him. And so Greg Reed came to see me, and he had like this 70-page manuscript. And so we sat and talked about it, and I volunteered to help write 3 Feet from Gold with him. And it was an incredibly fun project because we talked to a lot of very, very well-known people about their past and things, the valleys in their life and how they persevered and got through it. Went that extra step. Those, only 3 feet from gold, keep working, perseverance. And so that was a great, great project. And the month we released it, in October of 2009, is when Don called me. He says, I have this manuscript. We just got custody of it. It had been locked away for 73 years. And he said, I don't know what to do with it. So he sent it to me. And I was probably only the 4th or 5th human to read this manuscript. Wow. And it was hand typed on a typewriter, and had handwritten notes from Napoleon Hill himself. So it was like I was having this conversation with Napoleon Hill. And it just knocked my socks off. I said, this book was not put away because the wife was mad, which was the story. She was afraid of the title. She worked for the Presbyterian College. So, but I really, truly think there was a higher power at work, because that book probably would have stunted the incredible popularity of Think and Grow Rich. And Outwitting the Devil is truly a book for what's happening in the world today. And it really has helped me, because we wanted to bring Napoleon Hill's teachings to the younger generations. Well, yeah. Think and Grow Rich is not an easy read. And so, but Outwitting the Devil, they love it. It's truly done what we wanted to. It really instigated the fact that young people can take an honest look at themselves and say how things have been planted in their subconscious, that once they can identify it, they can get rid of it and truly take control of their lives. And then when we released that was when he asked me about Think and Grow Rich for Women. And again, it was just, the progression has just been incredible. And then we did Success in Something Greater. So,
Sharon, will you share a little bit more deeply the premise of Outwitting the Devil? Because I think that's probably the one that people know the least about. I just would love for you to share that a little bit more deeply, and why it's important, why it matters.
Well, when Napoleon Hill released Think and Grow Rich, he was frustrated. Mm-hmm. He said, I am giving you the doctoral thesis of success. Mm-hmm. I am giving you the pathway to become wealthy. But most people won't do it because of fear. And he added that last chapter, The 6 Ghosts of Fear. But he was still frustrated a year later, even though the book itself was becoming popular. He wasn't seeing people grasping it. Right. And so he sat down and, Think and Grow Rich was a 25-year project, which many of your audience probably know. But Outwitting the Devil, he would have, if the term existed back then, he would have said he downloaded it. He basically, within a few short months, wrote Outwitting the Devil. And he does believe that there was a divine intervention. And what it is, he wrote it as a parable, an interrogation of the devil. The devil's on the witness stand, and he has to tell how he controls us. And in the book, Napoleon Hill says, you can believe I'm talking to the real devil or an imaginary devil, your choice. But will you derive any benefit from what I share? And he takes on every taboo there is: sex, politics, religion, education, liquor, tobacco, food. I mean, all of them. And talks about how we derail our potential in life by drifting. He introduced the concept of drifting, where think of someone you know that you want to go out to dinner, and every time you want, they go, whatever. And he's like, just make a decision, whatever, go with the flow. They're not using their own mind. And in the book, he talks about 98% of us don't control our minds. 98% of us do not think for ourselves. Only 2% of the world's population are true thinkers, drivers, and action takers. And that's kind of a sobering statistic. But then he talks about how those things happen. And once you identify it, so for instance, with religion, he said, did you learn your religion through faith or fear? Now, I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church. And so fire and brimstone Sunday morning from the pulpit, I just knew I was hell. I mean, it was all about fear. And yet my youth minister talked about the love of Jesus, the love of God, all through faith. And so when I read this manuscript, it just brought home so much about the struggles that I've had related to guilt, worry, and how much we can combat fear with faith.
Well, why I love that and why I love reading it and then writing the forward to it and narrating it is because, as you know, I believe inspiration is everything, because inspiration is metaphorically, like he talked about the keys in another one of his books, and the key that turns on the engine called your life, and you've got to be inspired. And obviously I was inspired like you were to come out of poverty and come into riches, abundance. And just so you know, she leads a charmed life with her husband and has even a ranch, which we'll talk about at the very end if she's open to sharing how they have moo cows and have fun. And they're so wonderful. They invited us up and we had just the most glorious time there. Anyhow, but the key that turns it on, and if outwitting the devil is the key that turns it on, then from my heart to every kid's heart, every one of you out there that got a kid or a grandkid, you've got to have them read it. Now, I've sold more teenage books probably with Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul than anyone alive, but I'm asking you now to jump topics and read Outwitting the Devil yourself. Get your kids to read it. And then what Sharon articulated just now is you talk it through to the kids, because it doesn't matter whether it's a real devil or a simulated devil. What Napoleon Hill, Dr. Hill correctly says, it owns your mind, because the subconscious is malleable. It's formless stuff and it's mutable. And what happens is whatever you impress, you express. And if you impress that you're going to go to hell, like she said a minute ago, you will. If you impress you're going to go to heaven, you will. And what this show's about is let's plant seeds of heaven so we reap heaven, not only for ourselves, but for the whole world. For, I say the 3 C's are create, contribute, and be charitable. And just so you know, Sharon and Mike and Crystal are like that and have had meals even in recent weeks. And what's true is we're on the board of several things, but one of which is together raising lots and lots of money for different good causes, but one of which is child help, which has helped 12 million kids get out of abuse and neglect at all and just do wonders. But talk about how the book can really help a teenager and help mom and dad go through this trial and tribulation of not knowing how to think to learning how to think, and join us in the 2%. Well,
as you both know, the amount of mental health issues that are happening with our young people is on ever rising. And I think social media has not helped that with the whole concept of fear of missing out, FOMO, and all that thing. So it's really important for parents to provide the opportunity for kids to know that they're not alone, and that their feelings of insecurity, the feelings of fear, are things that you can release. But you have to be open and open your mind to the possibilities. And the way we can do that is through, as parents, a few of you probably would agree, you talk to your blue in the face and your kids just don't hear you. Got it, And so yet you give them a book like this, pay them to read it, pay them to write a book report. And it's like third-party validation. They read it, they go, oh my gosh, yeah, And back then when he wrote it in 1938, he talks about, he goes after young people with cigarettes, and that cigarettes turns them to other drugs and turns them into alcoholics. And that was before we even knew there was a problem with tobacco. I mean, he was truly a man before his time. And having the opportunity for children to see that they're not alone. That is so important, particularly with COVID and now social media, people feeling isolated, and that mental health is continuing to be a problem. We need to give them resources to realize that they are in control of their own destiny.
Can you imagine how much it would change our country if these 3 books, just these 3 books, were required reading in high school? I mean, it would do vast good. It would make a tremendous difference. I mean, I really believe that. I believe we wouldn't have these problems because kids are learning. It's the principle of autosuggestion. You know, everything we take in, we either allow it into our subconscious brain or we reject it. But what's happening is most kids don't even realize most people don't realize that's a deliberate process. We are just allowing, with our phones and our dings and our pings and social media, we're just allowing this barrage of things to fill us, and we automatically let it go in, and it immediately becomes an autosuggestion of fear and negativity, and that the world is a bad, dangerous place, and there's not enough for me, and that we're divided, we can't be united. All of these things are hypnotizing us. And until we understand that concept of autosuggestion, where we have, you know, God made us as co-creators. We all have a creator brain. So, you know, we have that guardian in our conscious brain that allows us to say, no, this is what I'm going to let in my brain or not let into my brain. And if kids could just be taught that.
And you're so right. And what I discovered when COVID first started, that I was allowing the background noise of the news or whatever. I wasn't even paying attention to it, but it was running, and it was inputting into my subconscious, and I was agitated all the time. Yep. And when I turned all that stuff off and I maintained, one of the things in Outwitting the Devil he talks about how to overcome that fear is controlling your environment. Who are you hanging out with? What are you surrounding yourself? Are you with people who like just want to pull you back? Or are you with people who want to support you and move you forward or challenge you? Are you allowing positive messaging to you? Or are you listening to all the negativity? And you just, particularly if you have any kind of empathy, it brings you down. So I talk about cone of protection. I usually put the cone of protection on to know that if you have a lot of empathy, protect yourself, because then you can help other people come up to where you are instead of you going down to where they are.
I've got 2 things to say about that. Number one, starting with what Crystal said, if they read these 3 books in high school, I got to tell you that when I was in university, I was in an audience with 5,000 people. W. Clement Stone, who was still working with and Napoleon Hill at the time, came to our university talk, as he did it at my colleague Bob Allen's University, BYU. But I was at Southern Illinois University, and he gave us all 3 books. He gave Think and Grow Rich, The Science of this Success System Never Fails, that he wrote with Dr. Hill, and then I Dare You. And the point is, everybody took them, 5,000 on 5,000 kids, all walked out. I, of course, read them, and it worked for me, and really was helpful. So what I'm doing is I'm doing an admonition. Somebody out there, and this is, we're in hundreds of countries around the world. You could do that in your country. You can get these books, and our books, her book, Napoleon Hill's books. Go to high schools, go to colleges. Yes. We are now giving you permission to go out and talk and have them watch this, you know, Prosperity Summit. And I'm really saying that, look, some of you are really rich, and you've gotten rich thanks to Dr. Hill. I mean, Sharon and Crystal and I have talked at different times about him being the kingmaker of millionaires, right? And having over 100 million. I got an idea it's probably 250 million people, maybe 1 billion people read his book by now, just because of so many iterations. But we give you permission to go out and try to change the consciousness. That was number one. Number 2 is that when I went bankrupt, I had to learn that cone of support. And the other guy that's helping us here is Reverend Ike, who just got me to understand that you've got to shut off the media. And I literally, at the time I went bankrupt, I was reading the New York Times, and the line was, all the news fit to print. No, they missed one word. All the bad news fit to print. And when you implode bad news, it has you descend. And I descended and lost $2 million all at once. My fault, and I take total responsibility, and I'm asking you to take responsibility. But the point is, it doesn't matter where you're at. It matters that you decide to ascend. That's why I said, we're ascending with ecstasy because of this interview with you and what we're doing with this, because everyone can learn a new level of sowing, which guarantees a new level of reaping, which guarantees a new level of abundance. And when you become abundant, everybody around you becomes abundant. Because back to what you said about collaboration, association, and what Dr. Hill learned from Andrew Carnegie, you know, Mastermind Alliance, where two minds get together, create a third new invisible mind that is immutable, unstoppable. And when I started doing those mastermind meetings, when I started speaking back in New York, which is where the joke was that people will eat your young when you're out selling in New York City, and they sort of do. The point is, when we had those meetings on Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock, if anyone got in front of me that day, they bought. And obviously I sold more seminars than anyone at the time. Back to you. What have you got to add to what I just said? Because I can see you're ready to talk.
Well, I think it's so true. And 3 Feet from Gold released the personal success equation. I want to share that with everybody watching and listening, because it's really no numbers in it, so don't panic. But P plus T, passion plus talent. That's all about you. You know, my passion came from anger, not from love. I was mad we weren't teaching kids about money in school. And my talent was years in publishing, years as a CPA. And I could combine that. And most of us stop there thinking we have to do it on our own. But true success comes times A, power of association. Who's in your world? Who's challenging you? Do you have the right advisors? Do you have a mentor that speeds your way to success and spears you around the pitfalls? Then times A, action. How many times do we know what we're supposed to do? We just don't do it way too often. And then all of that is encompassed with a plus F, faith. Faith in what you're doing, faith that is needed and necessary, faith that you will succeed. And way too many of us don't have the right associations, and that F is fear-based, not faith-based. When you have the right people around you, the right mentor, the right associations, the right advisors, and you have a bad day, they won't let you stay there. So when I have mentoring clients, we go through this formula. Every time I speak, every interview, I talk about this formula, because it's usually your power of association, your self-confidence that need the most work. And that's why we do what we do, is to give people the opportunity to see a light in their life. And so they can stand in their own light, stand in their own power. Don't wait for the light at the end of the tunnel, because then you're giving up your power. You're waiting for someone else to be your savior. Save yourself. Stand in your own power. God made you to be perfectly you. Not me, not Mark, not Crystal. You. You have everything inside of you to create the success that you deserve.
You come prepared. And I just want to hit on the word faith, and I'll give it back to Crystal. But faith, the Apostle Paul said, is substance. And when I heard Reverend Ike teach that in New York, and I'm bankrupt and upside down, my faith has got substance. Hey, pal, my pockets are empty. I don't have a Prince Albert cannon. My bank accounts just got poured out, and they took away everything I got. And you're saying faith is substance. It didn't make sense. But that's why the first line in Think, Grow Rich is, thoughts are things, but you've got to understand that you're either thinking yourself up or you're thinking yourself down. You're either having faith in a bigger, better, brighter, more grand, more wonderful, more noble future like we all are. And we're here to be the gadfly. We're here to stab your spirits alive.
No, and I just wanted to bring Cliona back in for a minute, because I know Cliona has a lot of questions and input that she would love to ask and share.
Yeah, and while she's coming in, Mark, when you talked about, I think life happens for us, not to us. And it happens for us. We take responsibility and know what we need to do. So,
bingo.
Amen.
Well, this has been so incredible, Sharon. Me being here in the background, listening to you, I'm so honored to learn from you today. I feel like I'm going to follow in your footsteps. I want to keep learning from you. You know, Outwitting the Devil. I'm so glad that we talked about it today, because it was that book, your book, Outwitting the Devil, that changed my life after Think and Grow Rich, of course. I was working for Bob Proctor at the time, Sharon, and I just started working for him in the internal team. And all of a sudden, that book magically appeared and was delivered to my home. Wow. To Cliona from Cliona. But it was when I started working for Bob. So I'm going to use my imagination. And just like you said, when I started reading through it, and I discovered that over 98% of the people are drifting with no purpose and no goals, it shook me, Sharon. It shook me. And I'll tell you this. So I'm getting goosebumps right now because you're part of my purpose. Because of that book, I was able to create my burning desire when I found out the truth about what's going on in schools, just like you shared today. I'm getting goosebumps right now. When I just connected the dots today, looking back, I just remembered, oh my God, that book is that's the book changed everything for me, Sharon. I'm so grateful.
Well, I have a lot of people, and I know Mark does too, that come up to me and say, you changed my life, or your Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life, Outwitting the Devil changed my life. And I always stop them. So I'm going to stop you, Cliona, and I want you to say, something I wrote, Outwitting the Devil, inspired you to change your life. Own the fact. A lot of people read Rich Dad Poor Dad and did nothing. A lot of people read Outwitting the Devil and do nothing. You read it, you were inspired, and you took action. So no matter what country I'm in or what language is being spoken, I always stop everybody when they say that, say, I didn't change your life, you did. I know, and I'm honored and thrilled that I inspired you, that something I wrote inspired you to take action. But own it. Be proud of yourself and stand in your own power, because you will change the world.
Wow. Thank you. I'll take that to heart, Sharon. I will. And so I have a couple of more questions for you, if you don't mind. As I studied 3 Feet from Gold, I want your personal opinion on this. Do you believe our faith is tested right before we find the gold?
Almost always. Something happens to us. And particularly during COVID, I share this a lot because in my career, 12 years ago, I lost my youngest son, and I went into a world of numbness and lived in neutral. And I didn't have many highs. I had a lot of lows. And I woke up one day and said, I'm still here. In fact, I heard my son in my ear saying, get over it, Mom. There's more for you to do. You're still here for a reason. And that's what I share with everybody. No matter what's happened to you in your life, our faith gets tested. And if I didn't have my faith, I wouldn't have survived that. But at the same time, things that stop us in our tracks, it could be a death, a divorce, a financial setback, an illness. And we can be stopped and grieve. We need to do that. But don't allow it to keep you numb, because you're still here for a reason. You have more to do. And so many times that thing that questioned our faith becomes our fuel. It turns into our mission. And so let the mess, whatever happened to you, turn into your message. Because when you do that, your energy, your passion for sharing that to help other people will become someone else's miracle.
Boy, can I just add to that for a minute? Because I really just need to affirm Sharon. During that time, I know she was going through so much pain. And one of the problems when we lose a child, the difficulty is a lot of times the parent will die with the child. And I saw Sharon take all of her pain and turn it into courage and conviction. And I know she was in tremendous pain. I mean, a lot of times, marriages will fall apart, families will fall apart. Sharon took her pain and turned it into conviction, and her family stayed together. Her family grew stronger. Her marriage grew stronger. And she took that out in the world and started doing the kind of work I don't think you ever did before. I mean, you'd already done so much, Sharon, but you became a new person. And I think it's such a good example for all of us, because we know a lot of people through this COVID thing. People have died. People are losing people in their lives. We can either take our pain and die with them, or we can take that and turn it into courage and conviction and say, like you said, I am still here. God wants me here. What is my next, mission? And Sharon, thank you for showing us all such courage, because it's been amazing to see.
Thank you.
Wow. Pain into your purpose. That's what I'm getting today. You turned that pain into purpose. And I have one more question for you, Sharon.
Sure.
And again, your personal opinion. I have my opinion. I would love to hear what's your thought on our desires of our heart. Where do you believe they come from?
Well, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question before. The desires from our heart. So again, we have those of outside influences that we think are our own personal desires, but we look at life through the lenses of other people, and we need to stop doing that. And so I think one of the greatest journeys we can have is discover our own inner passion, our own inner joy, because people seek joy and happiness based on what they see other people. I get so tired of seeing all this Facebook of somebody standing in front of a jet and in front of a Rolls Royce. Let's be realistic. Find your joy. The joy is inside. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of dear friends who are billionaires who died. They've lost their marriage. They've lost their kids because they were chasing the almighty dollar. Joy is your heart. We talk about legacy. Legacy is created every single day with every heart you touch. It has nothing to do with money. What is the mark on other people's heart that you're going to leave when you depart this earth? Where are you going to live on in the hearts of others? It's okay if your money lives on in the wallets of others, but that's not lasting impact. It's your heart.
Yes. Wow. Yes. Don Green, it's similar. He said we should be living a legacy. We should be living a legacy. So I can see
every single day with every heart we touch. Yep.
I love that. I love that so much. And so outwitting the devil, being, a game changer. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're up to now? I can't wait to hear more about your Money Works book. Can you tell us a little bit more about that project?
Well, the book that I wrote 2 years ago was called Exit Rich, which is also a great book to helping people understand how to turn a successful business into one that's scalable, sustainable, and saleable. Too many people own a job, not a business. But I'm exceptionally proud of a book we just launched last month called How Money Works for Women. It's over my shoulder here. Take Control or Lose It. And it's a totally easy read. It's all 4 colors, like a graphic novel. We have avatars for women for every decade of life from 19 to 86. And we talk about the financial issues we face. One is looking at college, which of course applies to men and women. One is starting a business. One of them is actually has a special needs child. We talk about the financial trauma. Another one is escaping an abusive marriage and trying to reestablish yourself with 2 children. Talking about because physical abuse also almost always includes financial abuse. There's another woman that is trying to figure out how to apply for Social Security. Another woman who's been married 25 years, looking forward to a beautiful retirement with this husband in their golden years, and he comes home and asks for a divorce. She has had no credit in her own name. She immediately drops her quality of living because he's gone. She has no credit, no access to funds. Same thing happens when a woman loses her husband. If she doesn't know where everything is and she doesn't have her name on the account equally, then she doesn't have access to funds. And it happens every single day. I am so passionate about women understanding your credit score is different from your husband's. Mm-hmm. You need to take control of your own financial life, because as women, we already own 60% of personal wealth in the United States, and over 42% of us are the primary breadwinners in our family. That's a huge change in social dynamics. We also are having this 30 trillion transfer of wealth over the next 20 to 30 years. With that comes a responsibility, not only to receive it, but to understand how to invest it, how to make it grow, and how to preserve it for future generations. And can you tell I'm passionate about this?
I love it. I'm very excited. As soon as we get off this call, Sharon, I'm getting a copy for each of my daughters and my daughter-in-law, because it's
if you order it through my website, SharonLechter.com, I will autograph them for them.
Okay, done.
Oh wait, I want to compliment our dear friend again, both of them that are on along with Crystal and I, and that is understand what happens is you read Think and Grow Rich, you read the monumental work of Dr. Napoleon Hill, you read back to, How to Raise Your Own Salary, the interview with Andrew Carnegie, and what you're seeing here is that all of us said, hey, wait a second, this is a foundation. And we're into building business at some levels and doing monumental work with people who are building giant billion-dollar operations here and around the world. And what you know about building, and that was the business I went bankrupt in originally, but the depth of the foundation determines the height of the building. The depth of your personal foundation determines how high your building is. You're watching us, that's the right thing to do. You're going to input these books, that's the right thing to do. You're going to input the courses we offer, that's the right thing. But everyone that's well off that we've talked to, whether it's Warren Buffett or anyone, he said the first and best investment you always got to make is in yourself. Notice Cliona invested in herself and read this stuff. Notice Sharon, and I don't mean to be shouting, I'm just as excited on my side as Sharon is, and Sharon knows me really well. We're saying, hey, look, we want you to grow. Metaphorically, we want you to get your biceps and triceps together, and male or female, and really pull off the magic. Because when we wrote the book that's on our back here, Ask, we said, look, God gave you a divine destiny. What Sharon's son said, hey, look, Mom, you're not done yet. You're still here. That the people who had a near-death experience, 20,000 of them, that went the other side and came back, to a man, to a woman, and no matter chronology, sex, race, creed, color, religion, every one of them, the big guy or big person or group said, hey, you're not done. You didn't come and fulfill your mission. Right. That's why you take the pain that we've talked about here, you take that and you put it back into passion and purposefulness. You've got a direct mission. We can't tell you what it is, but if you go deep, like we're teaching and ask, God, what's my destiny code? God, what's my destiny code? 101 times, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and write it down. Make sure you got a pad, paper, tell your spouse or spouse equivalent that that's going to happen, because it will happen, not for some of you, for all of you. And then we take that 2% and go to 3% and then 5% and then 10%. And 100% of us should live our destiny code as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm happy to say that Sharon and I and Crystal did a lecture recently. We signed our book to her, Ask. So you sound like Mark, you're just trying to sell us books. No.
I also have my journal right here. So that's
a book is the most screaming, inexpensive thing you can get. And then if you attend our seminars, we've attended so many. I can talk for all four of us pretty accurately on this, because I know we've attended and we've given and we've attended again and given more. And none of us are quitting, because we want more for you than maybe you want for yourself, only because we see this bigger, better, brighter, more grand and noble future.
And we don't call it work. It's our calling.
No, it's joy.
No, it's joy. It's a calling. It's our mission.
I was raised by a father that asked me every single night, Sharon, have you added value to someone's life today? He's been gone for 17 years. I still ask myself that every single night. And wouldn't the world be a better place if we all focused on adding value to other people's lives?
What a blessing, Sharon, to have a father that would ask you that question. I mean, what a wonderful man. I mean, maybe he didn't have wealth, but that's a different kind of wealth that he gave you.
He grew wealth because he built assets. You know, he had these businesses. He kept buying rental properties. I said, I've been a real estate investor since I was 11, because I had to go scrub out bathrooms between tenants. And he bought orange groves because the oranges gave him cash flow. And years later, SeaWorld is on those orange groves. So he did very well. It's just at the point when I was young, all I saw was the sacrifice, not the investment in assets that later created wealth for him.
Wow. So beautiful. Thank you, Sharon. I get to get together with you all the time, and I've gotten so much out of this. And I know all of our listeners have been blessed today by listening to you, by being present with you. You are a blessing and a gift to the world. And I can't wait to go out and get the new book. And I hope everybody, if you don't have the other books, get them, gift them to your schools. Let's spread the joy and the truth and make this world a better place, because there's nothing that allowing negativity into us will do for us. The only way we actually change the world is by doing these good works, by learning good things and using those tools to go out and do good works. That's how we change not only our own lives, our children's lives, but the rest of the world. So thank you.
And my offer is open to everyone. If you order it through my website, there's a place for you to put notes. I'm happy to autograph it and send it to you so that you have a personalized opportunity for yourself or for gifts to other people.
And you want to get signed books, ladies and gentlemen. The big word is autophilabilia, which means that you're an autograph collector. And Sharon's been to our house, and she and Mike, and they know we got a lot of signed books, and we just love it. And it makes, and like I said earlier on the show, Napoleon Hill's book was signed to somebody, and Bob Proctor bought it at a high expense and gave it to me just so I would have a book that Dr. Hill had.
That's right. It's an amazing copy. It's so exciting. Yes, I love that. So.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm so grateful, and I can feel your passion, especially for the women and the children. I'm originally from Ireland, so I want to encourage especially our Irish woman, the whole country, get out and get the book. We need it over there.
I was just there. I just spoke last month in Dublin. Love the Irish. I feel like I'm home when I'm there. I kind of look at it. The freckles, I'm there.
Yeah, you do actually. We have a lot in common. Yes. And where we grew up, we were told money was evil. We had no education on money. Ireland, definitely, you need to go out and get the book. So Sharon, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your heart. I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. It's my honor to be here, and always love Crystal and Mark. And I'm delighted to have you as a new good friend, Cliona. Thank you. And for everybody watching and listening, remember, you're fabulous. Just stand in your own power.
That's it. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you for the next session.
Hello there and welcome. I am Napoleon Hill, and I'm interviewing the devil.
You can address me as your majesty.
All right, your majesty, who are you?
I am everywhere and I am nowhere. I live in every atom, every particle, and in every mind. I am the negative to the positive, the down to the up, the dark to the light. I am gossip. I am greed. I am vanity. I prey on drifters, those with no direction, no purpose. I sow the seeds of doubt and weave the threads of worry. I am the one holding you back. I am the one that comforts you and numbs you. Who am I, you ask? Look in the mirror.
Now, your majesty, there may be drifters, but they have the opportunity to become free thinkers. I believe in each one of us there is a guiding light, a beacon of hope. It is a flame burning in each soul, ready to ignite if given the chance. It resides in the hearts and minds of all individuals awaiting realization. There is potential in all of us.
Outwitting your inner devil.
From drifter to leader.
And you see, you come to that ultimate realization, and Dr. McCarthy is going to put this on the screen. The ultimate realization that brings money to you. Here it is. I am money. You see, I am is God. And whatever you add to I am, you become. Whatever you add to I am is added unto you. Did you get it? I'm going to have you repeat it after me. I am is God.
I am is God.
Whatever you add to I am, you become. Whatever you add to I am, is added unto you. That's why we're told in the commandments, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. The theologians have no idea what that means. Every time you add something negative to I am, you take the name of the Lord in vain. This is why the mystic in the scriptures teaches us, let the weak say, I am strong. If you don't understand that, you will think that you're being told to lie. But you see, it does not say, let the weak say, I am weak. Why? Because I am weak is not the truth, it is a lie. That's the lie. Another song on our Don't You Ever Sing That in Here is that I am weak, but thou art strong. You have just cursed. The dirtiest, lowest curse. You have taken the name of the Lord in vain. And of course, the name of the Lord is the nature of the law. Now listen to the rest of the commandment. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. What does it mean? If you say, I am weak, the Lord of the law will give you weakness. That is the nature of the law. Let me hear you say, that is the nature of the law. You see, we've got to come to understand God and the Lord as principle. Now, this is what the theologians don't want you all to get a hold of. You know, the Ten Commandments are not just a bunch of thou shalt nots because God wanted to stop you from having fun. Thou shalt not commit adultery. He wanted to stop you from catching AIDS. Well, now let me stop meddling and go back to teaching. There's a reason. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Every time you say I am, you take the name of the Lord. Every mind takes the name of the Lord when it says I am. Let me hear everybody say, I am. I am. Now you're taking the name of the Lord. You have taken it. Now what are you going to do with it? Don't mess it up. I remember down south, we always said, and the older people always said to us, don't play with God. You see, people are unconscious of their power. Regardless of who you are, regardless of whether you know what you're doing or not, every mind takes the name of the Lord. Every mind takes the name of the Lord. Whenever you think consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously, I am, you take the name of the Lord. You are dealing with the nature of the law. You are dealing with the nature of divine principle. And you are going to get a reaction. According to the nature of what you add to I am.
You're muted.
Walls, say hi, Ken.
Hey, It's so good to see you guys.
Ken, we're so happy to see you out in front because you are kind of that magic genie behind the curtain. So this is our beloved Ken Walls. And I'm just so happy everybody gets to be introduced to you, Ken. Thank you.
I'm grateful to be here. You know, we're working on a lot of things behind the scenes for everybody. So we will, and everybody watching, I just want to say, go over to prosperitysummit2023.com and go ahead and get registered. You'll see the registration link there. So we have your email and we can email you out all of the packages that are coming. We're finishing, tightening up the back end of everything. So we'll get all of that out to all of you. I promise you. I know there's been a lot of people in the comments that that wanted to get in on it. So it'll get out to you. But wow, I'll tell you what, this has been fantastic.
There's never been a seminar like this, and there's never been one, like I said, that goes into 180 countries. But I was great friends with Charles Tremendous Jones, who rewrote all the books that were out of print and put forwards on them. But Charlie, and he did a book on me, on my biography, a little mini biography on me. But Charlie's most important line that fits everything that's happened in the last couple of days and on into the finish of this thing now: you will be the same person you are today, 5 years from now, except for the people you meet, and you're meeting great people on here. And number two, the books you read, the people you meet, and the books you read. So you got to decide who you're going to meet. And some of you have read all my books and know that I say, write down a list of 200 people you want to spend time with, play with, grow with, be expanded by. Take your picture, put it next to their picture, and see yourself getting with them. Because here's the question you ask you: well, I can't get with them. Pretend, go to your 85-year-old self, whether you're 25 or 35 or 45, or like I am 75, go to your 85-year-old self and ask, what could I do to speed up my whole life and make it work?
Well, and I just want to say, you guys, that the truth is our minds will be fed every day. Our minds are constantly being fed by the world around us and what we're taking in. So the question is, what will we decide to deliberately feed our minds with? And I just want to go back to what Sharon was saying about having the right associations, the right models, the right advisors, and the right mentors, because that is what keeps you fully on track to reach your greatest destiny, to fulfill all of your dreams. And so we're just so happy and excited to have all you guys here, because this is an opportunity for all of us to take it to the next level, right? To start feeding ourselves correctly with the right models, advisors, mentors, and feeding ourselves so that we become all that we were meant to be in our greatest expression and nothing less than that.
You know, we have had some, I mean, I met Xavier because of you guys. Sharon Lechter, I know Sharon very well. She's amazing. You guys are amazing. And everybody that's been on. And we have somebody I introduced to you guys coming up next, Brian Hess.
Oh,
right?
We love Brian so much.
Brian Hess is not only wonderful and wise and well married and got 4 kids and is a superstar all by himself. But let me just tell you, we had breakfast with our son, who's 41, with him not long ago. And at breakfast, what did he do? He pulled out a whole package and started giving me books. So this guy is a book maven, and these aren't lightweight books that he gave me. So I'm not going to talk to any of that right this minute. I just want you to know that you are who you are, because the people you meet, you're meeting people that are going to uplift you, exalt you, illuminate you, inspire you, enchant you, and help you be all you can be. And the books you read, which is the congealed wisdom of these individuals' lifetimes. It can't get any better than that. And that's why, obviously, we want you, hope you read Think, Grow Rich again and again, and now read Reverend Ike's book that Xavier and I have written. And bless every one of you. We've read your every comment, and we're deeply thankful.
So amazing. Well, what do you say we move over and show everybody the brilliance of you interviewing Brian Hess, which is just absolutely amazing.
Let's do it.
Thank you. Right. Thanks for introducing us.
Thank you, guys.
So, Brian Hess, tell us how you started at 6 years old.
So, man, as long as I can remember, I was always incredibly interested in business. You know, it was always something that, you know, I was always trying to inquire about business, people that were successful, people that I, aspired to be like. I can say that now. I don't know that I understood that when I was that age. But my mom would tell you that, from the time that I was 3 years old, she always found me in the stores and everywhere that she took me, talking to older people, talking to people that were already doing things in their lives. And so, I was always talking to entrepreneurs when I was young, whether it was in the department store or the grocery store. I was always interacting with people. And so I think I learned at least the networking portion of business when I was very young. And then, my dad was a steel worker. My mom stayed at home. So I kind of took the traditional path of, go get a job, save your money, have some kids, buy a house, and then, retire. And as I got into that world, it just never fit me, man. It was always kind of an uncomfortable fit. And so at 38 years old, I finally decided that I was going to take the leap, go out on my own and start a business from scratch. And so that was 5.5 years ago. And so since then, started my own company, multiple of them. I have exited one, sold one to private equity a few years ago. Still have several existing now, and we've got a lot of things going on inside of this organization. But yeah, it's been an exciting ride, man, to learn from the time that I was really young. And, it's not often that us as entrepreneurs get the opportunity to walk down memory lane. So thank you for this opportunity to do that. Because, you always find something new every time you do it, right? Some new light bulb goes off about something that inspired you many decades ago to be at this point that I'm at now.
Tell them about the drone business, just because I know the businesses that you own, but that's one of the fun ones that no one would have thought of. And yet most people think of a drone as a game, and you saw it as a business opportunity worth billions. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I own the Pavement Group. So we're a nationwide asphalt and concrete company. We serve most of the large brands that you would shop at, pump your gas at, do your banking at, receive your packages from. We interact with those companies by managing their portfolio of pavement assets, so asphalt and concrete. And so one of the challenges that existed when I came into this business back in 2011 was a lack of data and information. And so I was always had a technology background. I was always interested in it. And so as I got into this space, there was a huge lack of technology. And so as these things started to become more prominent, I always knew there's got to be a way to utilize these tools to be able to analyze all of the inventory of assets that these companies have. So if you can imagine, a large retailer that you shop at has thousands of properties. And so to create an inventory of those assets, certainly an inefficient way would be to do that the old fashioned way with a wheel that you walk across the parking lot. And it's not only inefficient, but it's not accurate. And so we utilize drone technology, aerial imagery, high resolution aerial imagery, and artificial intelligence to collect all of that data, measure cracks in the parking lot, be able to tell people how many parking spaces that they have, how many stop bars, how many stop signs, how many catch basins. So to create an inventory of somebody's assets, we can do that in a very short period of time because of drones and drone technology.
So tell us how you got started courageously, how you got your first client, and then you're going to have to jump way forward to how many employees you have right now and how well the business is doing, if you don't mind, because we're trying to inspire everybody to understand that half the people should be going not to college, as far as you and I have talked about before. And you even want to do a book with us called, Blue Collar Gold Rush. So go ahead, take it away. I've given you 3 questions at once. I respect that, but you've got a mind that is so comprehensive, you can handle it.
Yeah. So, when I was working in construction, so I was working in the industry for, about a decade, and I just always, the companies that I worked for, innovation was not something that was at the forefront of what we did. And so, at the forefront of what I was trying to do was innovate this industry. And everywhere that I went to, there was always some level of restriction or a lack of interest in moving that innovation forward. And so I finally got the courage. The company that I was working for was being purchased. And so I had an opportunity to either go out on my own or continue working for someone else. I luckily made the choice to go out on my own and start this company back in 2018. And the rest is history, man. We innovated this industry. We've developed an application that allows these, massive property owners to be able to inventory their own assets out there. So they collect all the data through thousands of properties. We assist them with that, but there's an app that GPS coordinates all the issues, all the potholes, all the risks that exist on their parking lot. And so that's how we bring value to those clients, and we get them home to their families with less concerns and with less issues than they would working with any other contractor. We just simplified that process very quickly for them and at scale. Fast forward to today, we've got about 2,300 and change contractors around the country that complete work for us. So we've got,
you're outsourcing all the work.
Yes, correct. So we've got the largest network of contractors in our space in the marketplace. And we communicate with them through social media platforms, through video content, through podcasts. We educate them through Top Contractor School, which is another organization that I own. And so what we're trying to do is essentially make all of those contractors that complete the work for us across the country feel like cultural employees of what we're trying to accomplish here. And we've been able to do that in the, tens and tens of millions of dollar range. Every single year, we've doubled the size of the company every single year since 2018. And we're on pace to do, lots and lots of revenue over the next 5 to 10 years.
So what is the biggest struggles that you've had and overcome?
I think it's, the unknown is probably the biggest struggle as an entrepreneur. And, to become an entrepreneur, you have to be comfortable with the unknown, right? You have to lean into the unknown. And so, when you're an employee your whole life, like I was for 38 years, you don't really have to deal too much with the unknown, not as much as, you do when it's all rising and falling on your shoulders. And so for me, I found comfort in mentorship and having friends like you and having people that I can reach out to, that when the unknown happens, it becomes known to me very quickly what to do. Even if my intuition tells me to do something, having people that I can call and having mentors that I can call creates that validation and allows me to move forward with confidence. I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I had to adapt to as an entrepreneur, is getting comfortable not knowing what you're doing.
Our friend John Maxwell said, all success in business, life, politics, and religion rely on leadership. And you're a great visionary leader, sir, if you don't mind my complimenting you. What are the 3 biggest principles that you had to hold on to keep moving onward, upward, and forward?
Leadership is definitely one of them. Everything rises and falls on leadership is what John says. And I couldn't agree more. Leadership has levels to it. And, for me, leading people is a lot different than leading other leaders. And so having to learn that. So leadership is definitely one of them. Sticking to your values is a really important one that I think the world is a little bit lost on at times now. People adapt to, different trends or different, things that are out there in the world that don't necessarily align with their values or principles. And so that gets them off track, right? And a business can quickly go from successful to not successful when the vision isn't in line with what the actions of the business are happening. And the third one, I would just say, people matter. At the end of the day, it's the people collectively that work inside of our organizations, those contractors that complete the work across the country for us. Those people have to matter. We have to prioritize them. And in today's day and age, we hire the entire person. We don't hire an employee. We hire a human being. And so with them comes their family, their children, their grandchildren in some cases. And, when we sell that vision to those people, it's the responsibility of the company, of the leader, and all the leaders within the organization to deliver on those promises to those people and to keep them reaching for their potential. Because, results are one thing. Somebody's potential is completely separate than the results they get sometimes. And so when people matter, you put their dreams inside the dreams of the organization. And if all of that aligns, you have lightning in a bottle when it comes to business.
So you're one of the best read guys I know. When we sat together the first time here in Scottsdale, and you were working with everything from Amazon to Marriott to Walmart and doing all of their pavement, You and I are talking about all the books you read. When did you read Think and Grow Rich, and how did it edify you, or what principle or principles edified you the most?
Man, it would be hard to choose a couple of principles. I think the whole book, any successful entrepreneur would probably tell you that they've probably read it 10, 12, 20, 25 times, right? How many times have you read it?
200 is one time I counted, so it's way over that, because Bob Proctor read it every day, sort of like his business Bible. He knew the Bible intimately, like I do also, but Bob and I own two companies together, so that's correct. What you're saying is, let me just restate what you said and said, you imploded it from conscious to subconscious. You impressed it so you could express it. So it's now just part of the fabric of your being. And if you could reiterate what I just said in your own words, that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, for people out there, if you haven't read it, number one, I would say there's also workbooks out there that help you work through the book in a more intentional fashion. So after I read it probably 4 or 5 times, I found one of those workbooks, and that really helped me take it to the next level, really digest it. And you hit the nail on the head, man. I think any book is like this, but specifically something as legendary as Think and Grow Rich. You have to be able to make that part of who you are, right? It's, I always say, be intentional about the way that you live, because you might be the only Bible that somebody ever reads that day. The same is true for Think and Grow Rich. If you can be the example of what Napoleon Hill set out to communicate to you through that book, you're going to change a lot of people's lives by being the example, living what's in that book, not in a way that you are just thinking about it and executing on it, but something that becomes like breathing in and breathing out. And if you can live those principles of networking, of how you communicate with people, how you treat people, how you're intentional with how you look at people, how you shake their hands, everything about how you operate matters. And I think Think and Grow Rich is by far the handbook to show somebody that may not know. They might know what needs to happen, but how it happens, that's by far the best book that I've ever read on giving you the instruction of what it looks like.
Now, the other thing I think I electronically sent you, and I'm not sure you've had time to look at it, but we've written a biography of Reverend Ike, a man of extraordinary influence. Did you have a chance to glance that? And if so, what are the principles that you were able to extract that you'll be able to use?
I didn't have a chance to check that out.
Okay, cool. So what is the most important nugget of wisdom you can give the people who are starting over or just starting out?
Think big, man. If there's one thing that I could do, go back and do over, it would be to think bigger sooner. And in the process of thinking bigger, you have to sacrifice in order to achieve bigger. Delayed gratification is the greatest compound interest in the world. And if you can continue to reinvest in yourself, reinvest in your business, and reinvest in those people around you, and think bigger in the process, the results, the compound interest that comes from that, you won't believe it. You'll have a life that you never dreamed you could have in just a very short period of time. And I'm proof of it. 5.5 years, my life has changed dramatically.
You've gone from zero to hero, and I'm glad to watch your hero's journey. Just real quick, Cliona, could you come back in and you get to ask him 2 or 3 final closing questions?
Okay. Thank you. This has been incredible. I'm so grateful that I got to join and hear your story, some of your story, Brian, and thank you so much. I love the way you were connecting the dots yourself, even looking back today, right? It was beautiful to watch. What I want to ask you, this whole summit is about Reverend Ike and also Napoleon Hill's principles. And I'm an immigrant woman from Ireland, and I came to America with very limiting beliefs around money. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how your beliefs around money have changed, and what can you tell someone who's watching today that maybe still have those beliefs around money that are not serving them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was lucky enough to grow up in a family where half of my family lived in the projects and the other half of my family lived in a mobile home park, right? And so I had a lot of people in my family that had a broken mindset. And what I figured out when I was very young is that those people, while they might look different, they might have different backgrounds, they might have different thoughts. It's the mind that was tricking them into believing they were less than, right? And they had that in common, no matter what environment I was in. And so I think we're taught that, the old phrase is a penny saved is
penny earned.
Penny earned. That's
it's
right.
It's actually not. It's just a penny. And so until we understand that these phrases that we hear when we're little boys and little girls program us to believe something, because I believe today that a penny invested is a penny multiplied, and a penny bet on yourself or a penny invested into a book, a penny invested into mentorship is exponentially more valuable than a penny saved. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't save money, but those are the things that we're taught. And so, in America, the culture is, I said it to Mark just a few minutes ago, it's like, get a job, make sure it has health insurance and a 401k, save your money, have some children, buy a home. That's the American dream. And so what I would say to people is the American dream of buying a home is a marketing strategy of the banks, right? And so I'm not suggesting it's not a good idea, but you have to be honest and open about what that means. And so for an entrepreneur or somebody that's trying to start out in business, the capital that they would take to go buy a home, maybe it is better for somebody to rent until they could buy the home 4 times over, right? And so I think it's experiences that we take the risk to go out and try things that allow us to unlock those things and unlearn. One of the things that I always say to our team here, it is easy to learn. It's very difficult to unlearn. And so to unlearn, we have to have experiences that contradict what we believed before, or we have to read things and learn things, or have people like Mark who are willing to mentor me to teach me things that I would have never experienced if I hadn't met him. And so moving that forward in our own minds requires experiences. To unlearn, we have to actually go do, because otherwise it just stays in there forever.
This is so important. To unlearn, we actually have to do. We have to take action. This is incredible. What advice would you give to someone? We call it, and Bob Proctor I used to work with as well, he used to call it the terror barrier. It's when you come up against that wall of fear and you have a decision to make. And so let's say someone wants to leave the job. They don't even like it. They're not happy. They want to start that business. What advice can you give someone who's hitting that terror barrier? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think we have to lean into fear. It's everywhere around us, right? It's one of the things that you get used to as an entrepreneur. People ask me all the time, how do you stay so calm? Number one, I have faith in God, right, above everything else. And so my faith allows me to stay calm and know that I'm headed in a positive direction. And, ask yourself, what does it really mean, right? What does the fear really mean? It means that you're about to break through something into greatness. And one of the things that I've programmed in myself is, when things get difficult, when I get afraid, I try to think about my competition. And I know that a lot of people would stop when the fear happens, right? They would slow down or they would pause. They're momentarily paralyzed because fear has taken them over. And so I get excited when adversity happens, because it's an opportunity for me to create distance between my former self and my competition.
Wow. This is incredible advice. Yes. The opposite of fear is faith. So I love the fact that you went straight to faith, and also fear allows us, as you said, to lean in and grow. And that's what this is all about. We want people to grow. We want people to change their beliefs around money and to step into their faith. This has been incredible, Brian. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Mark, do you have any other questions?
What would be the smartest thing that we didn't ask you that we should have, sir?
I think what's happening in the world today, the thing that I talk about most is the intersection between technology and human beings. And I believe that the future of business, the future of people are going to be those that leverage technology at every twist and turn that they can to reduce costs, increase efficiencies, increase experiences with customers, employees, et cetera, but never, ever lose the old-fashioned way of doing business, shaking hands, looking people in the eye, and doing the right thing.
We're teaching the same thing. You got to have high touch and high tech, but the high tech I'm teaching now, you're either AI enabled or you're AI not abled or disabled. And you'll be in a lose-lose very quickly because AI is multiplying us all so much.
Amen. Couldn't agree more.
I agree. We move with it, not against it. Yeah. But as Napoleon always says, as long as we go the extra mile and we serve, we apply the golden rule, which is do unto others as we would want done unto us. I think that's one of the biggest messages I'm taking from you today, Brian. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Brian is an absolute master maestro of golden rule. I can tell you as his close friend. Oh, I'm going to claim I'm a close friend. As soon as it's over, he said, that ain't true.
I love it.
100%. Love this guy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mark. We're so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm sure our viewers are too. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. Tell us again one more time about your upcoming book.
So the first one or the second one? The first one is called Trade Secrets. And then Mark and I are working on a little bit of a mastermind book for contractors called The Blue Collar Gold Rush.
Okay, awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing them out there soon. And we look forward to seeing you again.
And you want to give your website just real quick, Brian, if somebody wants to come and work for the Pavement Group, where do they go?
Yeah, www.thepavementgroup.com. Nice and simple.
Awesome. Thank you. Brian, thank you. And Mark, thank you so much.
My pleasure. I've enjoyed every second. Thank you both.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. And here we are.
I love this. It's been such a great day, such a great week, hasn't it?
Oh, wow. I'm learning so much, like over and over. You can never get enough of this. Repetition is king, right?
It surely is.
Well, the spiritual law is my cup runneth over. And if your cup's not running over, you're not hanging around the right people, learning the right stuff, earning what you deserve to be earning, because everyone is probably worth more than they're getting right now. So you need to be imploding this so you can explode on the screen of your space in new, exciting, delightful ways, because it's there. Right? There's wisdom, eclectic wisdom, like you said, golden nuggets, treasures of every one of the people that have shared. And they're sharing from their heart, their soul, their mind, and their brain. And they are giving, I'm of Danish descent. We have created smorgasbords. There's so much here. All you got to do is pull out a couple little nuggets. And most of you are going to have to go back to the Prosperity Summit 2023 and rewatch this stuff again and again, and then get all the products also that we're recommending. That'll be up and showing tonight.
And what occurred to me that I think is so fascinating is every single person we've heard from in these last 2 days, including ourselves, has been able to create extraordinary amounts of success and happiness and prosperity in their lives, not because they inherited a bunch of money, not because they're smarter than you, not because they're smarter than anyone listening, right? But only because they embrace these principles. The principles are the magic. They embrace the principles. They got the right mentors. Brian was just talking about how mentors changed everything for him and where he was 5 years ago. I mean, it's incredible how that changes everything. That's why these opportunities are so important for all of us. And I know they have been for me in my life. I would not be where I am today if I didn't have a whole string of mentors and programs that have taken me through these principles and helped me understand who I really am and what my greatest potential is. And I am so very thankful for that and to be able to share with everyone listening today.
Yes, I agree. Once I got a mentor, it cut off years and years. I was doing it on my own for years. And now I call that shelf help. So once you have a mentor, shelf help. And once I got a mentor, everything went so fast. And Bob used to always say this. I'm sure you've heard him, Mark, say it all the time. He said, once the money starts coming, you'll wonder, it'll come so fast, you'll wonder where it was always hiding, right? And that's what I heard today. It's not just about the money, it's everything. It's this way of life. It's freedom. I know no matter what I go through, I go back to the principles. I go back to the prosperity principles. I go back to the principles of Think and Grow Rich. I'm not afraid anymore. I don't live in fear. I live in faith. And that's the common thread that I hear so far. And everybody's loving this. We have time for questions. So I'm just going to, if you have time, I would love to bring up some questions.
Let's do it.
And don't go away because you're getting homework, everyone. You're not.
Stay put. It's good homework, though.
Well, yes, we have we've got 2 little assignments at the end of this. So stay on for your assignments. Remember, we want you to put into action. It's not just about listening and filling your cup. You have to move into action. Okay, so I'm going to bring up these questions and pass it right to you. I'll start with you, Mark. Easter Thomas says, she said, the summit is so powerful and inspiring. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Can these principles be effective for a 65-year-old that's still trying to find their way?
Well, first of all, I'm your senior, so you got to be nice to me. I'm 75. But the answer is, Crystal and I started a brand new business 2 years ago called MarkVictorHansenLibrary.com. And I got to tell you, I could never predict that I'd be a publisher and that we'd have explosive success. So that's our personal deal, and it is inundating us. We are having a tsunami of success, sort of like when you watch Joel Osteen. He says, when it happens suddenly. But we're seeing that again and again. We just were at a birthday party of a medical doctor, Gladys, who's 102 years old, still practicing. At 102, she invented something that her partner, who's our friend, Rita Davenport, says is going to make her a billionaire at 102 here in Arizona. So success has nothing to do with chronology. It has to do with awareness, which is what Reverend Ike and Napoleon Hill were teaching. And we're saying, hey, look, when you up your awareness, you up your results. Your self-worth creates your net worth. It is real. It sounds simplistic. It sounds cliche-ish, but it is actually the case. And Easter, what a great name.
I know.
I love spring is my favorite of the 4 seasons. So I'm with you, and our grandkids love having to find stuff at our house. I'm inspired just to do that story, but my wife says it's too long a story.
Happy wife, happy life. That's one of the points. Right. Just letting you know they forgot it in the book.
It's a long story. It's a cute one, but yeah, we better stick with what we're doing. Yeah.
We would love to hear it. We would love to hear it. So let's go to, I think, Philippa Conley. Beautiful Philippa. She says, which is the most significant principle you believe has changed your lives?
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, you.
I'll start with that one. I think faith is so important because, as we've said earlier in the summit many times, the world's always pulling at us. And that faith principle is so important. You have to decide to believe. Belief is everything. You have to decide to believe in yourself, believe that you deserve it, have faith that you deserve it, have faith that every answer is out there for you, have faith that every measure of success is out there for you. You know, that faith is that beacon that you put out there for yourself and move toward that. And it's such a beautiful thing. And, you know, it's talked about in scripture again and again. Believe as if you've already received. That is faith. That is faith. So, you know, don't wait till you've received what you want. Don't wait till you've received your dreams before you know that you already have them. And I know that is kind of a crazy principle for people. I think it's a hard one sometimes. But if you just embrace it, it becomes more natural. The principle of faith and belief.
Hitchhiking on what she said, the world's greatest life insurance salesman, Joe Gandolfo, who's a dear friend, had Napoleon Hill's thing carved in his desk. He took out his knife, his Bowie knife, and got anything the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. And he went from zero to hero. He was a nobody, and now he's outsold 1,500 of the 1,800 life insurance companies. One productive human being, because he never let the glass ceiling stop him. And Joe is amazing, and we did a lot of seminars. We just saw him we were walking through a lobby in Las Vegas and saw him. So he's still motoring, and he's older than I am. So he's somewhere in his 80s, but a little wrinkles, but still doing great.
Wow, that's incredible.
Answer the question of the last person, because we're writing all these biographies. Everyone we're doing biographies with now is a lot of them are in their 80s. Every one of them to a man and woman, and we're doing a lot of them. But I'll just do John Paul DeJoria. He's 82, and he's feeding everyone in Africa. He's feeding 40,000 people a night. In I don't know if I talked about this earlier, but down in Austin, Texas. And every night when they come in to eat, they get tested, and he found out 60% of them could still go back to work, want to go back to work, don't want to be homeless, and he trains them to go home and make money again. So this is a no limit thing, and it is exquisitely exciting to the two of us that I can go on and on about all these people that are in their 80s and doing not a little work, but doing phenomenal work, and luckily we get to write with them, and obviously a lot of younger people too. But it is illuminating to me that here's the big thing. When I wrote a book with Art Linkletter, who had 3 TV shows, Kids Say Darndest Things People or Funny House Party, he and I wrote a book called Make the Rest of Your Life the Best. We said, don't retire from something to nothing, retire from something to something better, and go in a new, bigger, better, stronger, hardier direction. That fits both things, because you got to have faith to go do that. And if you don't have faith that you can do it, you got to believe the 3 of us have faith that you can do it. And the whole Napoleon Hill Institute and Reverend Ike's whole legacy program, believe more in you than you believe in yourself. So let our faith charge up your faith and ignite it to great heights.
Yes. Oh, yes. Take our faith. Take it all. Take all the belief. Take all the faith. Absolutely.
Shining it out on you. You guys are amazing.
Yes. And you know, going back to what Easter said, she's her age, you know, and Reverend Ike said it today as well in the video that we played. We identify, anything comes after I am, that's what we're identifying with, right? And so I have a friend who's been studying this for decades. He knows this material inside out. He's an amazing teacher. His name is Joseph Rodriguez. And you know what he says? He says, I don't identify with an age. He's like, I am ageless. So that's his belief. He's created the belief. He doesn't identify with an age, and he looks so young. And I mean, we're spiritual beings in a physical body, and it's whatever we decide we are, then so it is, right?
That's so true, Cliona, because I have never identified with age either. In fact, I forget how old I am. It's never been relevant to me. I just live my life, and I always perpetually feel like I'm 30. I just don't even. I don't tune in, but I literally have to stop and think, how old am I? It doesn't matter, because I know who I am. Remember, what you are is shining out from you. That's who you really are. That essence, that light that is already inside of you is shining out from you. And the whole point of this work is to really let yourself shine fully. And we need the help to remember how to do that. And that's why we're here doing this work. And it's so rewarding.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. These goals, and yesterday we did our definite major purpose statement. We gave everyone a definite chief aim, how to write it out. I want you all to know, and especially the people that are new. Let's say you're new to all of this. You haven't been studying personal growth, or this is all new to you. The goal is not to get. The goal is to grow. Keep that in mind. You're growing, just like Crystal said, you're growing into that person you were always meant to be, that higher self, that other self that Napoleon Hill talks about. You're going to meet your other self. And I keep meeting my other self every couple of months.
Really?
Right?
Yes, it keeps happening, you guys. You keep transforming. That's the beautiful thing about it. Again and again and again. You'll reach the pinnacle, and then you go, oh, wow. And you move forward again, and you realize there's something even greater and even greater. The principles, if you stick with them, always serve you.
Always. They're always working. The law is always operating. Okay, we have another couple of questions here. There's so many questions coming in. Okay, let's see. This is Christina. What has been the biggest insight through adversity?
That adversity is here to propel you. It's not here to stop you. It's here to, I say adversity is what gives you the work clothes to go forward. When I went bankrupt, it got me out of what I shouldn't be doing into what I should be doing. Napoleon Hill said, in every adversity, there's a seed, back to sowing, seed of equivalent, something equal, equivalent or greater benefit. And once you change your attitude, when I first heard that, I thought, and then I did a lot of seminars with W. Clement Stone after, and he wrote a book called Success Principles That Never Fail with Dr. Hill. But Clem would always say, problems are good. Problems are good. And I thought,
I love that.
Is this guy an idiot? What the hell is he saying? Problems are good. You cuckoo. And what you find out that problems force you to change your perspective. Like everyone say, well, what does your hand look like? Well, this side of the hand is ageless. The palm of the hand with all the fingerprints, ageless. This side ages. That's just a change in perspective, up and down, right? Bob Proctor teaches it as polarity. But the point here is that your perspective is, if you change your perspective, let me just do a big one because we're talking about business here. I'm scholarly and done a lot of videos on Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is shut down during COVID. The government thought you cannot build those cars with the 90,000 people. So instead he calls up 3M's head, says, hey, look, I'm shut down, but I got materials. I got robots. I got people. I got 3D machines. Let me make all the respirators you need. And while he was making respirators, he also made more cars than anybody has ever made and became the biggest car company in the world and the richest man in the world. So did he have adversity? Yeah. But what we've said, starting this morning, I said, you can't let your situation, your circumstances, the events, the experiences, the statements of negative Nellie and negative Ned show up in your life and hit you, because they will stifle you, stop you, thwart you, deter you. And if you just hold fast to the picture like we're teaching here with your dominant thought, which is one of the principles of Dr. Hill, right? The first line is thoughts are things, right? Faith is substance of things hoped for. Substance is things predicted and not received yet, right? And that's what Crystal was articulately talking to, and earlier Xavier, and then of course, Brian Hess is a master manifester of that, and so is Sharon Lechter. And it's so exciting to share this with you, because this is like the good news, right? And some of you need more good news. You need to get all your best friends to watch this too, folks.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add one thing to that adversity piece. I truly believe you will never become all you were meant to be. You will never become the greatest version of yourself without adversity. It is adversity that presses you into something better, that discomfort, that pain that causes you to face yourself and seek the answers. Start asking for a different question and seeking a better solution. And every time, if you're willing to embrace your adversity and have faith that you will get through it, that there is a better answer, that you're becoming stronger, when you get through it, you will see that you've become someone different. Just like my early childhood, or not childhood, I was, I was 20. But my tremendous adversity, just being single, alone, baby on my hip, no friends, no family, no job, right? That adversity pressed me. And it's like iron sharpening iron. It's like a diamond doesn't ever become a diamond without pressure, tremendous pressure. You need that pressure to learn who you truly are inside and how to come out and shine.
Oh, I love this conversation. I love it. They call me the queen of persistence for that reason. I thrive in pressure. I just do. And I love it because I'm growing and I'm growing. And I always say, let me see what I'm made of.
And you surprise yourself, right? You really do. When you get that kind of pressure and you overcome it, it's like, wow, I didn't even know I was capable of that.
And that's why Christ said the first mile doesn't count, the second mile does. You got to go the extra mile. And this is why all the stories you've ever read, like the fire that just happened in Las Vegas, 4 people in wheelchairs during the fire that they announced, we cannot get to you, so you've got to get out of the building by yourself, and you're not allowed to use the elevator. People that hadn't walked went down 20 flights of stairs, hadn't walked in 20 years, and now they can walk 25. Little women that are 98-pound weaklings, grandmothers, all of a sudden their grandson is 17, 18 years old, working in a car falls on them. They walk out and with effortless ease pick up a 2,000-pound vehicle. The power is always there, but it isn't there in the first mile. The power shows up only in the second mile.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Yes. So let's see what we're all made of. Let's do this. Let's go the extra mile and see what we're all made of. And, you know, I want to give the homework now, and then we're going to watch another beautiful clip of Reverend Ike. And we're going to email all of you the information on the beautiful holiday packages that we've prepared for you as well this evening. And so let's get to the homework. We have a few things that we would like for you to do. So number one, we are going to send you out. Yesterday, you did your definite chief aim. You wrote it out beautifully. And I saw some of you on Facebook. They did an incredible job. Well done. Now we're going to have you take your definite chief aim, and you're going to put it on a beautiful goal card. And we're going to send this out to you and put it in the Facebook. It's a little goal card that my mentor used to carry in his pocket. Mark, your good friend, Bob Proctor, used to have a goal card. We all have goal cards here that we carry with us, and we touch, we look at it, and every day we visualize, we see ourselves from the end. So we want you to take your definite chief aim, put it in a little goal card, but we're also going to move you into action as well. We have what's called the Napoleon Hill Action Plan. We believe there's 3 steps: purpose, plan, action. Okay, so you've tapped into your purpose. You've created this definite chief aim. Now you're going to create an action plan. So it's the Napoleon Hill Action Plan. You're going to break it down into 4 steps. We'll send it out to you with instructions. Don't worry. Once you have this plan, you're going to break it into tasks with deadlines. And then you're going to think about the resources that you're going to need for each task. Okay, so each task will have a deadline, and then you're going to write next to it the resources that you may need in order to achieve the task. Okay, so we'll send this out to you. Tag us on Facebook. Make sure you tag us so we can look at what you've done and give you some feedback. A lot of our coaches are going to be in there helping you out as well. And so today has been incredible. Tomorrow is going to be another amazing day. Can you believe we get to do this?
I love what we do. And I just love this audience. A lot of really special people here. And I hope we get to keep working with them. And we just become a really beautiful community of people who can love and support each other. So thank you all for being here. And we're excited for tomorrow.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So tomorrow, first thing, we have the one and only at 12 p.m. Eastern. Remember, we go live from 12 to 3 Eastern. Our first session is live with Dr. Joe Vitale, and I can't wait to hear him and be with him. And then in the afternoon, you will hear from myself and Don Green, who's the executive director of the foundation, Napoleon Hill Foundation. And then our third guest at around 2 p.m. is your good friend, Lynette. If you want to just tell everybody a little bit about Lynette and get them excited for tomorrow.
Well, Lynette, and we don't want to give it all away, but she is just an incredible woman who was basically, left alone. Her husband left her with 3 kids, and she went through a tremendous journey back to rediscovering herself. You're going to be amazed by her journey. And now she is one of the top gold and silver salespeople. She has a huge business selling gold and silver, investment gold and silver. So you will be so delighted by Lynette. And I know you'll find yourself in her story because it's just one of those stories that all of us can relate to, just kind of losing everything, being rejected and betrayed. And then, I don't want to give too much away, but you will love Lynette Zhang. She's a very special, special person.
I do one other thing that fits Easter's question. She is senior and she went 30 years without a man.
Yes.
And now she is indefatigably in love with her bliss mate and soulmate. And she just, well, you saw it on the screen. She just exuberant and exudes. I mean, she's always been high energy, but this, you just got to know that these people are doing wonders in their world.
Yeah. She gives us all hope. She's incredible. So we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Make sure you check your emails, check your spam, everywhere. You're going to get a lot of information from us. But tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern, join us live with Dr. Joe Vitale, and we'll be right back here then. We'll see you. And thank you so much, everyone, for your comments, your love. Thank you, Mark and Crystal. I love you. This is amazing.
We love you too, Cliona. See everybody tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.